What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 2 of the David Carson Show. What do you know? I'm late again. My apologies. Lots of technical difficulties. I realize probably over the next week, I probably will not hit my 1 p.m. Time that I'm trying to hit, but, whatever. What can you do? Just slowly making the podcast better. I'm trying to get the sound more dialed in. I hope it's a bit better today. It's interesting, on my interface, I'm plugged right into it, and it sounds great. But then I watched it back, and I was really quiet yesterday. So I worked on that, and just a few other technical things. I have some plans to change just in the back end, just to get rid of some of these errors and stuff. But, what can you do? I'm also looking to get a new mixer, and I also want to get a new microphone. I want to get the SM7B, which Joe Rogan uses. Tim Pool uses, a lot of people use. Now, I want to get a really nice mixer, but, other things come first. So it's going to take about a month for that, but in the next month should be pretty dialed in. But anyways, let's get into the news. What do we got today? There's some big stuff. The leader of the Wagner group, Prigozhin, he got killed in a plane crash, apparently by the Russian defense. They shot down his plane with 9-10 other people on it. Insanity. If you don't remember, he's the one who led the coup, 6 weeks ago, a couple months ago? And yeah, and he got banished to Belarus, but he was in Russia, and they shot down his plane. Very, very interesting. We'll get into that. We'll get into how Biden fell asleep during the Maui victim meeting. Locals scream F you to Biden over his failed response. Also, CNN is seething over Oliver Anthony's success. Cruise cuts Robotaxi fleet in half after multiple incidents in San Francisco. Secret Service arrests woman who threatened Trump and Barron's lives. New report raises questions about Biden's role in the Burisma situation. Major flooding strikes Grand Canyon southern rim. Rudy Giuliani heads to Georgia to be booked for the bogus election case. Second, Republican moves to impeach Fani Willis, who's the prosecutor in that said election case. And we'll talk about, is welfare destroying the U.S. economy? All right, let's dive right in. Like I was saying, Prigozhin, he's gone. Putin took him out, which, it's crazy. He kind of lived for so long after this. He should have stayed banished to Belarus, but it's really interesting. I wasn't sure if they were going to make amends, like they said. A lot of people said they were going to, because Prigozhin just has so much influence. He has a bunch of influence in Africa. He has all the Wagner group and everything. But yeah, apparently Putin didn't care about that. Let's check out a clip.
Fox News alert now. Russian state media is now claiming that Wagner Group chief Prigozhin has been killed in a plane crash in a flight from Moscow to St. Petersburg. Florida Republican Congressman Michael Waltz sits on the House Armed Services and Foreign Affairs Committee. He'll join us with reaction in just a moment. But first, let's get to the news with Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin. She's live at the Pentagon as we learn the details here. Jennifer, what exactly do we know about this at this point?
Well, Sandra, what we know is from the official news agency TASS, which says that a private plane carrying 10 people on board, and among those people, Yevgeny Prigozhin, who was long known as Putin's chef, the head of the Wagner Group, who attempted a coup against Vladimir Putin over a month ago. He was on board. The plane crashed near Tver, which is northwest of Moscow. It was en route to St. Petersburg. There is some video evidence that has appeared on Telegram and on Twitter, suggesting that a Russian air defense system may have shot down the private jet and that Prigozhin was on board. We're seeing now news from other Russian news sources. This is really no surprise, Sandra. Nobody expected Yevgeny Prigozhin to survive very long after attempting that coup against Vladimir Putin. In some ways, it's surprising he lived as long as he did. If these reports are proven to be true out of Moscow, but state services, TASS and Kommersant and others are now reporting that Yevgeny Prigozhin, the head of the Wagner Group, was killed in a plane crash outside Moscow. Sandra?
Jennifer Griffin, we'll get back to you with any more details that we get from that news. Thank you very much.
It's crazy. Yeah, they just shot him down, and they don't even care if like people get hurt, I guess. Though they killed other people. I mean, they were probably his associates, but yeah, they took him out. They didn't care at all. And then the collateral damage that could have happened. It's wild, right? But yeah, now Prigozhin's gone. I don't know what they're gonna do with like the Wagner group. This whole thing with Ukraine for Russia is really falling apart for both countries. Really, they should really just negotiate and, end this whole conflict, because now there's a coup against Putin and everything, and now one of his biggest allies, he's just gone, and the Wagner Group was helping a ton in Ukraine. So I don't know. It's very interesting where we go from here. But yeah, with that, let's move on to the next story. Biden falls asleep during Maui victim meeting. Locals scream F you to Biden over his failed response. Let's play a clip.
Rumors have been circulating that many of those missing in Maui may have actually been children. There was a viral post that I believe got deleted on Reddit that said that many of these kids were at home or by themselves while their parents were at work. And when the fires hit, these children may have lost their lives. We're now hearing from, I believe, actually the governor, that many of those missing, still 850, may be children, and it is horrifying.
That's definitely
There's a lot of blame to go around.
That's
everyone's
awful.
pointing the finger. And I don't blame Joe Biden for a wildfire. The disasters happen. Now, I do think that Joe Biden's response has been rather awful.
Yeah,
completely honest. Now more than ever, you need leadership with an event, with a tragedy like this.
Yeah, and
we have this
Biden
clip
is no leader.
Posted by the Post Millennial. Did Biden fall asleep during meeting with victims of the Maui fires? I'm sorry, I'm not mad at Joe Biden. I'm mad at the people who voted for Joe Biden.
Fair enough.
This dude appears to have fallen asleep.
I'm mad at both.
At a meeting with the victims of the Maui fires. Why? Because he's 80. Because he's an old man.
Old.
He needs to be in his wheelchair with his blanket on his lap in the sun, napping. Not flying to Maui to meet with a devastated community and talk about what we are doing as a nation to help those in need. Now, don't get me wrong. The president should do those things. Joe Biden is not capable of doing those things.
Yeah, he's not capable of being
president. I can only be so mad at Joe Biden. Now, don't get me wrong. I can be mad at Joe Biden over corruption and Burisma and war and a lot of things. But I gotta say, man, we are all part of this machine, and some are more to blame than others, no question. The corporate press, the neoliberal establishment, the uniparty elites, who so desperately hated Donald Trump that they made this happen. Let me play the video for you. You can watch it for yourself. Here's Joe Biden. He appears to be sleeping.
We are a community that relies on family, on ohana.
During the victim meeting.
Nods a little bit, dozing off. Oh, are his eyes opening? Old Grandpa Joe.
But like many others, my son's
and then his eyes start to sink again. And
my daughter's
there he goes.
There
he goes. Don't worry. Maybe he was just resting his eyes. See?
What?
See, here's what the BBC says. COP26, was U.S. President Biden asleep or just resting his eyes?
Resting his eyes is fake.
He's looking down. Maybe he's on his phone. I love that one. Maybe he's just looking down at his phone and he's texting away.
If he's on his phone, that's kind of bad too. He's in a victims meeting and he's not even listening and paying attention. He's just on his phone. I mean, he's the president, to be fair, but during these meetings, they're supposed to give undivided attention, right? Interesting.
I don't know, man. But when I look at this and I see a lot of people retweeting it or commenting on it and saying that he seems to have fallen asleep, how disrespectful, I'm so angry. I'm just like, dude, I am not upset that an old man dozed off because that's typical. I am upset that this country has become so broken.
I mean, that's fair, but Joe Biden could resign whenever he wants. So he's part of the blame. If he can't handle staying up during a victims meeting, what's he doing being president? But he won't resign and he wants to run again. So he's to blame too.
That this is who was elected simply because Donald Trump is a mean guy. And this is where we are. Now, outside of not being mad at an old man for falling asleep, but being mad at those who voted for him, well, let me just say this on that point. It's an important point to make as we enter the 2024 news cycle. You can tell all your friends, okay, I'm not mad at Joe Biden for falling asleep. He's an old man. But I certainly cannot vote for a guy who falls asleep while meeting with the victims of the worst wildfire in nearly 100 years. Sorry, I can't vote for that guy. Now, Donald Trump may have mean tweets and all that, but the dude is at least spry, and his arrogance is actually an asset, despite the fact you may not like it. Now, outside of where, I am perturbed seeing the president fall asleep like this, let's talk about his tactless behavior. This is where we can actually criticize Joe Biden and those who voted for him. This man is incapable of being president, and we need desperately right now leadership. From the Daily Mail, Joe Biden sparks outrage by comparing a Hawaiian blaze that killed at least 114 to a kitchen fire at his house.
Unbelievable.
After making tone-deaf, hot ground joke to rescuer. You see, this is the issue. I know a lot of people are going to come out and play the stupid game of charisma doesn't matter, policy matters, blah, blah,
what?
Blah, 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 blah. Okay.
If anyone who's saying that, and they're all going to be against Trump too, though. Policy doesn't matter, Burisma doesn't matter, but policy matters. But mean tweets matter, right? Even though the economy was like the best in our lifetimes, everything was doing great under Trump, no new wars. He negotiated the deal to get us out of Afghanistan. But mean tweets and all this stuff, that's the issue for them. But Burisma doesn't matter. People are so backwards.
Morale. Everyone who's ever led a team knows morale is key. If you think you are going to win, you put in that effort and you win. People often just vote for whichever candidate they think is going to win so they can say that they vote for the winning guy. Isn't that crazy?
That's nuts.
I have managed large teams. I, to a certain degree, manage a large team now.
That's this thing.
And if people are demoralized, work is not getting done.
Millions.
That is a
business
problem.
worth millions.
If you have people in this country demoralized because they feel black-pilled, bad things happen.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I am upset over what Joe Biden is doing and saying. Because at the very least with Trump, 2016, I didn't vote for him. Didn't like his attitude. 2020, I'm like, I certainly can't vote for Biden. And I did like Trump's policies, but more importantly, the foreign policy stuff really pushed me over the edge. At least Donald Trump can get up on stage and say, listen, we're going to get it done. And you're like, all right, well, this is a guy that desperately needs approval and will try as hard as he can to earn that. Not perfectly. He'll also push back on his detractors when he feels he can't win them over. Trump is not a perfect individual. Far, far from it. Here's a story from the Daily Mail. Joe Biden sparked outrage by comparing the Hawaiian blaze that killed at least 114 people to a kitchen fire. The president's motorcade was met with screams of F you after he finally arrived in Maui 2 weeks after the inferno, which left 850 people missing and destroyed.
It's crazy to me how Biden is just so bad with his policies. Like, Hawaii now just hates him. They always win Democrat. He might lose Hawaii because of this. Biden is just such a bad candidate.
The historic city of Lahaina. Biden compounded the anger in a garbled, meandering speech about the deaths of his wife and daughter in 1972 before comparing the horrific blaze to a kitchen fire at his Delaware home in 2004.
Unbelievable.
The 80-year-old capped off his disastrous 5-hour tour by asking a rescue team whether their boots were reinforced, noting the hot ground beneath their feet in a tone-deaf attempt at humor. Hawaiian residents and politicians have unleashed a torrent of criticism over Biden's failure to visit the island sooner and a paltry $700 offered to each affected family. He's in Oh, wow. Look at this. They're flicking him off. Angry Hawaiians are seen gesturing as Biden's motorcade passed Monday. He already left. He's already on his way. Apparently, he's going on vacation or whatever. To date, Biden has approved $8.2 million in assistance to 2,700 households, according to FEMA. Republicans were quick.
Another thing that I think is really funny, if you compare the left to Trump and what their state and Biden is, there was Trump was always golfing and stuff. Biden goes straight up on vacation. Golfing, you can go and golf and have business meetings while you're golfing. If you're on the beach hanging out and stuff, you're probably not really getting anything done. You know what I mean? But the left doesn't care. The left is just like, no, Biden can go on vacation, whatever. Trump can't golf, though, even though he can golf with business associates and get stuff done on the golf course.
To compare that to the $12.1 billion in security assistance that has gone to Ukraine so far this year. The president pledged a further $200 million to Kiev on the same day that people affected by the fires in Hawaii were offered the $700 checks. Talk about spitting in the face of these individuals. I am not a hardcore conservative. I am a slightly I'm a libertarian leaning, slightly liberal person. I think, if anything, taxes should be funding this.
Yeah, exactly.
Lahaina, economic hub in the Pacific for us. It's a big city with a lot of rich people and a lot of stuff going on down there. It's good for people and their lives. We pay taxes. Tax money should be used for things like this, not blowing up kids in foreign countries in the Middle East or starting wars in Ukraine. All right, the left is going to get triggered by that one. But engaging in war, fine. Russia invaded, fair point. But everything that we've been involved in, I believe, has been a misappropriation of funding. I do not believe we have any legitimate reason to be in Ukraine. I can simmer that down and say, you know, if there are arguments as to why we're spending money in Ukraine, fine, I've heard it. But ultimately, the people of this country who pay taxes in this country are part of a network that we all agree upon. Social cohesion. It's the insurance we provide each other. The history of insurance goes back. People lived in a little village, and they knew that if their house burned down, their neighbors would help them rebuild. And that was insurance. If my house catches fire, we all come together and help rebuild the house. And if your house catches fire, I too will be there to help you rebuild. Eventually, through currency and trade, they were developed companies that specialized in building houses, and it made more sense to just pay instead of actually doing the work yourself, because you don't build houses. Now, we all pitch in some money, and if our house burns down, then the company pays to have your house put back together.
Hopefully. Insurance.
That's how insurance comes to be.
They're crazy.
That's what I see.
They don't always pay
taxes. I'm not the biggest fan of the high taxes we pay across the board, but so long as we are, I would like to see all of my tax revenue going into the pockets of those whose lives were disrupted, who lost loved ones, and are trying to get back on their feet.
Yeah,
Some of these people are well off and maybe don't need the money in the same way, right? Somebody who only owns that house and that was their entire net worth, like, let's get them their house back. Let's figure this out. Rest assured, ladies and gentlemen, your money will be going to Ukraine.
So it's interesting, right? They should have their own money, but I guess if they don't, it's just like a spit in the face, like Tim was just saying, though. $700. That's all they gave them. Like, it's better to give them nothing.
Instead, Biden's visit was always going to be contentious, with some bemoaning his decision not to visit earlier and to opt to spend time at the beach. Others wanted him to stay away so resources weren't pulled from search and rescue. The president was criticized before his visit for failing to give the wildfire sufficient attention and accused of a sluggish response to the crisis. Last weekend, when asked, as he left the beach in Delaware, for his response to the fires, Biden replied, no comment. He also appeared to forget the name of Maui, repeatedly referring to the fires blazing on the Big Island.
Wow. And not only was he saying no comment when they were asking him about the fire, he would chuckle, he would smirk, chuckle, no comment. Like, this guy seriously has something wrong with him.
On Thursday, an emotional Ella Sable Takderen fought back tears as she told how she felt like the mainland was not treating her family like American citizens. It's really affecting me because where's the president? I mean, aren't we Americans too? We're part of the United States. Why are we getting put in the back pocket? Why are we being ignored? Oh, it's worse than that. Y'all are getting put in the back pocket while all of our money is being sent to Ukraine.
Yeah, wonderful.
Now, I understand. That's not really how taxes work. Taxes just pull money from the system to control for inflation as they print and send money wherever they see fit. But sure, our value, our buying power should be going to Maui. Even Democrats were demanding to know why the federal aid had been slow to arrive and joined in their Republican colleagues in questioning Biden's delay in arriving in Maui. Man, these photos are horrifying. Man, so, I don't even know what to say.
That's awful.
It's the kids is the big news. That so many children are missing. And this is the response we get.
Awful.
Tech Darren said
Joey
the checks
sad.
of $700 being handed out to each affected household were insultingly low. My parents received a check for $700, which was a slap in the face. You might as well give them nothing, to be completely honest, if you're going to give them that. Living in Hawaii, everything is so expensive. Groceries can be as much as $700 just for one grocery run, and it's not enough. She added elderly families in Hawaii are basically computer illiterate, which may explain why some people are being turned away on their applications for FEMA assistance. Some Hawaiians echoed Tech Darren's criticisms on Monday, with one holding up a sign that compared assistance to Ukraine and Hawaii. Ukraine has, per capita, received $1,700 per person, the author calculated, since the war began. Biden and his wife took a helicopter tour of the affected areas before addressing a gathering of local officials, senators, and community officials. Biden did not speak to the media present. Mr. President, listen to the people. Yeah, well, he's not going to do that. Look at this. They're all flicking him off. The president spoke, as he often does when addressing communities touched by tragedy, of understanding the personal weight. Biden's first wife, Nalia, and their 1-year-old daughter, Naomi, died in a car accident in 1972. He lost his adult son, Bo, to brain cancer in 2015. That hasn't stopped him from lying about it and claiming his son died in Iraq. When things look most bleak, that's when we need faith, said Biden, who spent 70 minutes after his remarks speaking to community members. He told how first responders supported him after Nelia's death and praised those involved in Hawaii's tragedy. At another stop, he referenced a 2004 fire at his Wilmington, Delaware home. I don't want to compare difficulties, but we have a little sense, Jill and I, of what it's like to lose a home. Years ago, now 15 years ago, while I was in Washington doing Meet the Press, it was a sunny Sunday and lightning struck at home on a little lake outside our home, not a lake, a pond. He said the spark went through the wires into the heating ducts and into the kitchen. To make a long story short, I almost lost my wife, my 67 Corvette, and my cat. But all kidding aside, I watched the firefighters, the way they responded. It is an anecdote that Biden...
Aside. He even says that, all kidding aside. Why are you kidding during a tragedy like this? Like, why? He's making jokes to the firefighters and out of the victims in a press conference. Like, what are you thinking?
Often tells in times of tragedy, firefighters arrived to heavy smoke, but were able to keep the flames contained to the kitchen. Luckily, we got it pretty early, Cranston Heights Fire Company Chief George Lamburn said at the time. The fire was under control in 20 minutes. Yes. I understand a little bit. I once had a small kitchen fire that was put out. Could have lost my car. I know you've got hundreds, maybe 1,000 children missing. But think about my car. I am not so extremely outraged by Biden flubbing these comments and saying these things. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I'm just so mad at Joe Biden all the time. I don't rightly care for the most part. No, I got to be honest. I don't. I think it is a bit absurd to pick and choose why you are outraged at certain comments when they don't land, why they're awful, blah, blah, blah. Joe Biden does a bad job. The real fault lies not with Joe Biden, but with those who are so angry with Donald Trump, they voted for him. And now we have this paltry, pathetic leadership.
I'd say, though, like I said earlier, the fault lies with the voters and Biden. He could resign at any time. He just chooses not to. He's so arrogant and loves the power. So I'm mad at both, personally.
We need real leaders. We need anyone. Yo, come on. Y'all can complain all day and night about Ron DeSantis' campaign, but he would be infinitely better than Joe Biden. RFK Jr. To be fair, yes. Hold on. I was going to say RFK Jr. and Gavin Newsom. And then I thought for a second about Kamala Harris, and no, she'd be worse. Because while Joe Biden might fall asleep or give you some nonsense story, Kamala Harris would say literally nothing. I mean, words would be coming out of her mouth, but you wouldn't understand what was going on. To be fair, maybe inspiring confusion is better than inspiring ire. If Kamala Harris came in, she'd be like, fires are bad. And we want fires to not be here because fires are bad. Yep. And you just be like, huh?
Well, then she'd bring up her diagrams and the loving school buses and diagrams and for no reason. Or she'd probably start cackling for no reason like she always does.
That's probably what Kamala Harris would do. Man, that lady is dumb. Incapable of holding public office, in my opinion. I honestly think they should both be removed from office due to cognitive impairment, but sure, fine, whatever. The question, I suppose, is should we impeach Joe Biden over protecting Hunter from criminal prosecution, shady business dealings? Maybe, but then everyone goes, yeah, but Kamala is impeachment insurance. That's why they really wanted her, because if Joe Biden gets impeached and convicted, Kamala Harris becomes president. And I gotta say, yeah, she's probably worse because she's just like a listless vessel. I love that, huh? Listless vessel. Gavin Newsom, okay, the dude's maybe a lizard person, but at least he'll function. I could at least appreciate that in his lizard brain, he can inspire some people. Not that I want any of them. Donald Trump has said stupid things I don't like. He mocked a journalist being body slammed. Hey, dude, I'm not okay. I don't like journalists at these corporate publications, but I don't think you make light of physical violence being used against them. Whatever. But that's how much people hate these corporate smear merchants. Donald Trump has said things worthy of criticism. Of course he has. A lot of things. But I feel like Donald Trump is a bit better at morale building and inspiring.
He's
confidence.
way better.
We were speaking with Lauren Brown last night on Timcast IRL, and she had a red pill moment, was that she posted on Facebook criticizing Trump over his response to Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. But she later then found out that a lot of the supplies that Trump had delivered were rotting and were never given to the people. And it made her think, how does this happen? They mocked Trump as he threw supplies out to needy people. Donald Trump throwing out supplies to people is a good thing. Joe Biden appearing to fall asleep is a bad thing.
Yeah, it's awful.
But these people hate Donald Trump. In their hearts, they are just so hateful that they would rather the people of Hawaii suffer and live in fear with no leadership. They would rather that than Donald Trump be a nasty guy. That's where we're at. So as we enter this election cycle, I hope you all keep that in mind, the importance of this story. It is not to say that Joe Biden is, he fell asleep, or how dare he say that story. The issue is this. Any reasonable person would conclude this man is not able to handle the job. Do you think at 80 years old, and he'll be 81 when the next election comes around? You think voting for him makes sense? No, I'm sorry. If he can't handle the job now, he's not going to be able to handle the job at all. And that's what we say to people. Now, I must also entertain the possibility that it becomes Gavin Newsom. And perhaps Gavin Newsom is going to be the nominee because Biden is clearly showing he's incapable of being president. And then your argument's out. Fine, so be it. We will have discussions about Gavin Newsom if Gavin Newsom actually does become the nominee. Maybe RFK spikes the Democrats, runs as an independent, and Trump wins. We will see. For the time being, the answer is clear. You were wrong, Biden voters, in supporting this man. You made a mistake. Your hatred for Donald Trump blinded you, and now we have someone who is failing and incapable of doing the job. This man cannot be allowed to win in 2024. You must not vote for him because he will be even worse off. I got to tell you, any complaint you might have about Donald Trump is not logically as bad as what Joe Biden currently is doing. He is not paying attention. He is drifting off. He's falling asleep. He's telling absurd stories here in Hawaii. The Afghanistan withdrawal was just a nightmare in American policy because this man is incapable of doing the job he has been tasked with. In his ego, so desperate to be president. What was it, the third time he ran? Absolutely pathetic. He wanted it so bad. And these Biden voters gave it to him. Why? Because they hated Trump, not because they liked Joe Biden. That's right. And this is what we get. These people who genuinely say we're better off now, you're wrong. We're not.
We're not at all.
Leadership, and a lot of people on the right are so convinced that Joe Biden is so bad, someone else must be running the show. A lot of people think it's Obama. To a certain degree, maybe. But I really do think that the problem is there is no strong authority in the executive branch. That people are like, I think Afghanistan was the result of Joe Biden muttering incoherently and then people being like, just do whatever, I guess.
Yeah, at least if they would have had a good vice president, if it was a Kamala Harris, yeah, maybe they would be they could do like the job for him. But no, he's just awful. Everything he does is it's just always broken.
No core vision, through line, and leadership. And that's where we end up now. I am not going to blame this guy for a wildfire, but I am going to criticize him for being incapable of doing the job. That's all that needs to be said. And I said it in 21 minutes. There you go. Next.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, someone asked in the chat, what do I think of Joe Biden's actions? It's like, they're just awful. All of this stuff that he does. I legitimately can't think of one thing that he's done that I've liked. I can't think of anything. Now he's falling asleep. Every time he talks, how he laughs, he's rude to reporters, like super rude. Like Trump was kind of rude to reporters. He's just nuts with the Hunter Biden thing. He's clearly corrupt, and this is just the cherry on top. Tim is saying like to Gavin Newsom. What's interesting about if Gavin Newsom became the nominee, Trump would just win for sure. Gavin Newsom, does anyone like him? Like people are just fleeing California because of Newsom. Everyone hates him. At least some people like Biden, like some old establishment people. I guess they might like Newsom too, but I don't even know. But yeah, this is all messed up. The whole Maui thing. They should definitely be giving them more stuff. Ukraine is getting so much money for the war, which is just destruction. They're basically paying for more destruction, and this is to help rebuild. They don't get anything. $700. Why even bother? It was like $8 million if you add it all up. Like, why? All this money they want to spend in these, they can't do spending cuts for anything. They're spending all their money. They want to do student loan forgiveness and all this kind of stuff, fighting climate change, but then they can't give anybody money in Hawaii. Well, they'll give them $700. Yep. It's insane. But yeah, with that, let's move on to the next story. CNN is seething over Oliver Anthony's success. I'm not surprised at all. Oliver Anthony is killing it. First time in history that someone went from the nobody to being number one on the Hot 100. So congratulations to him. But let's check out a clip.
The anthem for the voiceless. That's the focus of tonight's angle.
Practically overnight, this is crazy, the singer's gone from unknown to number one on the Billboard charts. And this is what happened. The unsigned artist breakout hit, it's called Rich Men North of Richmond, went viral online earlier this month. And
he deserves
sitting
it.
in the top spot on the Billboard Hot 100. He's the first artist ever in history to reach that milestone with no prior history on the chart in any form whatsoever.
Well, an historic climb on the charts, that should be a wake-up call to these out-of-touch elites in politics, the entertainment industry, who frankly routinely write off or look down on half the country.
'Cause all this damn country does is keep on kicking them down. Lord, it's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me, people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is.
So weeks after we featured the song on The Angle, the Today Show finally caught up to the groundswell. Not with bias, but with bewilderment.
Conservatives have rallied behind the track. It calls out wealthy legislators in Washington, D.C. Some are describing it as raw and authentic. And although on his own YouTube channel he posted a video in which he labeled his political views, quote, dead center down the aisle, everybody is talking about this thing.
Well, they're talking all right, but it's not all nice. The venomous crew over at CNN is clearly seething over the breakout success of those establishing their own counterculture. Well, the left is so used to having monopoly, aren't they, in music and in film, theater, even sports, that they start to sputter and fume at any perceived encroachment by non-wokesters. Liberal commentator Oliver Darcy over at CNN described Americans as primed to loathe mainstream pop culture and the media, and that they are willing to open their pocketbooks to champion their politics. Well, that's true, but Darcy went on to warn that Anthony's success
Why shouldn't they?
could spell the end of a shared popular culture, similar to how the advent of right-wing talk radio and Fox News ultimately...
He thinks that's been the case for a long time. What are they, the wokeness? This guy, Oliver Darcy. It's crazy they employ that guy.
Spelled the end of a shared understanding of current events. Okay.
Yeah.
A shared understanding of current events. A shared popular culture.
That hasn't been the case in so long. It's like January 6th. Most people on the right are just like, okay, it got a lot out of control, but it was mainly just, it was a protest. It got a little out of control. The left are like, it's the worst thing since 9/11. It's like, come on, relax. So and that's been, there's been a shared view of current events in a long time. And he thinks this song, I guess it goes to show even further. And everyone should be appreciating this song. It's a good song. It's talking about like Epstein Island, and rich politicians. The left used to be right on the same side of on a lot of this stuff, but clearly not anymore.
What on earth is Mr. Darcy talking about? Now, someone needs to break it to the modern left. We did, at one point, have a shared culture. And year by year, decade by decade, they mocked it, they trashed it, and ultimately they destroyed it. And ever since, powerful interests have worked to supplant traditional American values, country, family, faith, with a radical sexual and political agenda. The principle of tolerance, just tolerate everybody, well, that gave way to forced acceptance. And in the process, what did they do? They ruined the news business. Walter Cronkite wanted to be trusted by everyone, remember? Well, then Dan Rather, he wanted to be known as an outspoken lefty. Well, they both got what they wanted. Eventually, an opening was created for Rush Limbaugh and for Fox News. Well, they ruined education, too. Test scores, they're plummeting across America. Standards are being lowered or even eliminated. The curricula, bastardized. This spawned the homeschooling phenomenon. Well, they did the same to film, theater, music, fashion. Years ago, in one of my books, I called it the pornification of the culture. Well, it's pornified and too often now politicized as well. And these performers, they just can't stop making fools of themselves.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
When Donald Trump spoke at his inauguration about American carnage,
Again, I think it's really funny on the left because people like that will cheer for that. But then they go and do pretty much a guided tour in the Capitol, and they're like, it's the worst thing since 9/11. But she's talking about burning down the White House. And in 2020, they tried to burn down the White House. So, they're just so hypocritical. It's insane.
Assumed that was something he was against, not a campaign promise.
The past 4 years have left us as a nation diminished and divided. We are better than this. America is better than this.
Oh, tell us about it. So a vacuum has been created, all right? At least half of the country doesn't listen to those fools. And they don't like what's happening to our kids, to our schools, and they certainly don't like what's happening in most of our popular culture. They don't trust Hollywood, they don't trust the news media, and they don't even trust most politicians, frankly, in either party. So what does this do? This opens the door to new voices in politics and new voices in the culture who want to create movements and, in this case, want to create music and then films, plays, and even businesses for the underserved. And as for the consumers, what do? Well, they boycott woke nonsense at places like Target, Bud Light, or they support outsider films like The Sound of Freedom, or musicians like Oliver Anthony. That's their own form of protest. So are liberals really so clueless that they...
I mean, kind of. It's a form of protest, I suppose. It's what people like, So I'm like, it is a form of protest. I mean, the Bud Light thing in Target, that's a form of protest. But if you like Sound of Freedom or like Oliver Anthony, it's good. It's good art. So, yeah.
Didn't already know that the culture was splintered and that they did it? Now, I remember when they were urging a boycott of their own, of Chick-fil-A, because the CEO gave money to Christian charities.
Yeah, and then what I think is funny is now the CEO of Chick-fil-A is on stage saying if you see a black guy, you should go shine his shoes and give him a hug and stuff. So even that guy, he bowed down to the protest. Apparently, it's like, what if the guy's a weirdo?
But we Christians or other traditional Americans, what are we supposed to do? Shovel our money to people who obviously despise us? We're not supposed to try to create alternative entertainment, business, news channels? Oh, I get it. Sorry. They're the only ones entitled to protest and create. Oh, it was great when they were the only ones, right? Challenging the old guard back in the 60s and the 70s with their films and with their music. But when Oliver Anthony, guy nobody's heard of, strikes a chord with his song, it's seen as a threat. Well, newsflash to the elites. Long before Oliver Anthony, country music embodied the independent, kind of kick-ass American spirit, the working class, the forgotten man, and a simpler way of life. Jason Aldean's Try That in a Small Town is reminiscent of Hank Williams Jr.'s classic.
I got a shotgun, a rifle, and a four-wheel drive, and a country boy can survive. Country folks can survive.
And then it was back in 1974 that Johnny Cash released Ragged Old Flag. That was a patriotic ode. But liberals say that they're triggered today when they see too many American flags. Athletes made millions after refusing to stand for the anthem. So yeah, there are a lot of people out there who love the country and they're ticked off and they want their own space. But they're not going to find it at Disney. They couldn't do a live remake of Snow White at Disney without turning it political.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story.
This woman drives me nuts.
With a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird.
The fact that she's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's the proactive one, and she's the one who set the terms, is what makes it so relevant to where we are today.
Yeah, that's not weird, though. The women always win. Star Wars, all the guys are idiots. The women know everything. I'm not saying women are don't know stuff or anything, but why is it always in these movies? Always the woman, always the woman, always the woman. It's so woke, it's outrageous.
Relevant? Where we are today is that Disney is relegated to making live action remakes of their most storied animated films.
Yeah, and their parks are just going downhill. No one's visiting them. No one's watching their movies. All their stuff is just boring, and it's just the same woke nonsense. Yeah, Disney's relevance is falling super fast.
And turning them into tedious spectacles starring bubblehead actors and actresses who parrot liberal tropes. And, of course, directed by liberal dolts who think they're more talented than Walt Disney himself.
Yeah.
Now, let's see which the audience likes better. The original that Ms. Ziegler claims is so terrifying and outdated, or the 2024 version oozing with female empowerment. So look, you can have a common culture, or you can have a alienating left-wing propaganda machine, but you cannot have both. And that's the angle.
Yeah, that's the thing. They just want to have their view of the world and their culture, their view of culture. They want that to be universal. That's the thing she's missing, right? It's like they want all this. They want everyone to be woke. They just want everyone to fall in line. And to be fair to them, why they're probably so shocked is for the longest time, the right has done that. I'm really happy that now with Bud Light, Target, Disney falling down and everything, now the right's actually starting to push back. Again, for the longest time, people would just keep watching their movies, would keep drinking their beer. They have these weird commercials. They wouldn't even say anything. It's just, it's gotten so in your face. I think with BLM and the sports and everything, I think people got just sick of it. It's at least leave sports alone. And now sports is there. Bud Light is there. Everyone's just just please, can we just swing the pendulum back some? But now it's swinging really far back because she's saying, the culture on that side is so far away from what the right believes, but then the right would compromise so much. But now they're well, I'm done compromising. I'm not going to compromise at all. on anything. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think the right has moved to the left on social issues, and for a lot of things, that's really good. It's just when you're having it thrown in your face, it gets so annoying. It's just thrown in your face, thrown in like the Ziegler woman. No, you can't have true love. A guy can't rescue you. No, the women have to be the leaders. That's who. Yeah. Women, screw men. I don't want to do anything with the guy. It's weird. He wants to. Oh, he's courting. Oh, weird. That's just weird. He goes and saves her life. Oh, no, that's weird. No, the women should be. They can do it themselves. All the 1937. That's all just old and outdated, and we shouldn't have couples anymore unless the woman's in charge. It's like that's what they think. It's like, can't we just go back to some form of traditionalism? Yeah, women should have power, and if they want to like have a job and have their own goals. Okay, awesome. But why is it okay? Women should reign supreme over guys and all that, like the new Barbie movie. The women control everything. The guys don't get to say anything. It's like so backwards compared to what the left actually claims. They say they want equality, but no, they don't. There's been equality for a very long time, and now instead they're just like, no, women should be better, and you just can't have. Normal people don't believe this stuff, Most people are for equality, but when you have the woke left running everything and pushing it on people, it just eventually just gets too much. And people are just like, no, I'm just done. We'll just go make our own stuff. This has been too long. They keep pushing further and further and further to the left. It has to just keep like that Barbie movie. It's just more and more and more and more. It just never ends. But with that, let's move on to the next story. Cruise cuts Robotaxi fleet in half after multiple incidents in San Francisco. Yeah, I mean, Tesla's not even ready for self-driving cars yet, but Chevy and Google thinks they are when they have like nowhere even close to the amount of miles as Tesla. But they think they could do it better, I guess. Tesla doesn't have full self-driving cars in these services in cities, so very interesting. Let's check out a clip.
All the way down. It's the latest traffic jam that's putting the future of self-driving cars into question. Multiple driverless cars stalled in the middle of a busy San Francisco intersection.
And they stalled too. Why?
To get it moving.
We saw the traffic warden trying to communicate with the Cruise driverless car. I think he was knocking on the window, trying to talk to some speakers, to little avail.
This latest mishap adding to the pile of complaints days after California regulators allowed two companies,
GM's it's just stalled in the
Google's
middle of the road,
car company Waymo, to expand their fleets to 24/7 operation. But California's Department of Motor Vehicles urged that one of these companies scale back, requesting Cruise to cut their Robotaxi fleet in half as the agency launches an investigation into recent concerning incidents, including this close call just days earlier, recorded and shared on the Citizen app.
Look at these guys.
Showing the moments after a driverless car with a passenger inside collided with a fire truck.
They're going to ruin our life.
Police say the fire truck was driving with lights and sirens on as it entered the intersection.
And now what's also really horrible is that the fire truck can't even go. They're obviously going to a fire or a car accident or something, and now that stupid car is just blocking them.
With no driver and one passenger inside had a green light. The passenger was treated on scene with minor injuries.
I'm seeing at least one incident a day now with autonomous vehicles. The technology is not ready for prime time.
I think Tesla's pretty close, but these companies, they're nowhere near ready for prime time. Not even close. Why these companies are the ones that can do it? Tesla's not comfortable enough given full self-driving, but they're just like, okay, these guys can. It's so weird.
1, 2, 3, 4 Cruise cars blocking.
They're awful.
One can get through.
What?
Today, Cruise reducing their fleet in half to about 200 Robotaxis, telling us they have complied with the DMV order.
There's like 10 of them.
A speed bump for the company that marketed themselves as a safe and convenient alternative.
I'm literally witnessing the future. This is pretty impressive.
Cruise highlighting their safety technology on their website,
it's cool when it works.
That in their first 1 million driverless miles, their autonomous vehicles, quote, were involved in fewer collisions than human drivers were in a comparable driving environment.
We jumped around from different bars. The car picked us up when we needed it and took us back safely.
As companies start developing their self-driving fleets, a recent NBC News investigation found that in California, driverless cars have been involved in 280 crashes over the past 5 years. although it was not clear in how many cases the driverless vehicle was at fault.
That doesn't sound that
Jake
much.
Ward, NBC News.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of collisions and stuff with normal drivers too, but normal drivers, like, you could go get in the car and move the cars. These things, I don't know if can you even drive the things? They're just all stuck. There's 10 of them in the way. They don't know what they're doing. I think it's cool when it works. You know, I don't have very good eyesight, so like me driving, it's not very, practical. So, having, like, if I could have a driverless car, that'd be fantastic. But if it's just gonna crash and kill me, it's not worth it. I'd rather just, take an Uber or something. But yeah, it's interesting. And like I was saying, like Tesla's way better, but then they always give Tesla all this crap about, regulations and like the incidents with Teslas. When Tesla, they don't give full self-driving, but the self-driving they do, they don't have too many incidents. But I don't even think that's ready for prime time. You got to have it basically. It's pointless to have self-driving, and if it's worse than people, what's the point? What is there, like 10,000 deaths related to car crashes every year, traffic incidents? That's, I think, way too high. So if you could get robots to do it and do it safer, that's awesome. But if you have a robot doing it and you have no control, and just the robot's going to careen into a fire truck or just fly off the road like Teslas have done in the past with their older systems, it's like, yeah, no, how about we just don't do that until it's ready? And I don't think Chevys and Googles are even close to being ready. I think they're like 10 years behind Tesla, and those guys are the ones driving people around, and California gave them the green light to do this. That's very, very interesting. But with that, let's move on to the next story. Secret Service arrests woman who threatened Trump and his son Barron's life. People have just went wild. Let's check out a clip.
There's a balance. And what I mean by this is sometimes you'll see news stories of crazy people doing crazy things, and it is not indicative of the wider world. However, there's an inversion to this, in that people assume all of these stories are outliers and fringe nonsense and everything's fine, which brings us to the
that's probably
optimism
mostly
bias
true, but
and the normalcy bias. Here we have a story from the Post-Millennial. Secret Service arrests Chicago public school history teacher, 41, who threatened to kill Trump and Barron. No,
insane.
Pre-dawn raid. This one's really funny. And the reason why it's no pre-dawn raid is because we just had that story out of Provo, Utah, where there was a man saying similar things about Joe Biden. And when they showed up in a pre-dawn raid, it resulted in the death of this individual. The question is, why did they raid that man and not this woman? Now, to be fair, this guy was known to have a whole bunch of guns. And I think this lady's probably not known for having a whole bunch of guns, excuse me, especially in Chicago. But this is what I want to talk to you about with balance. I see a story like this, and the question is this woman indicative of something greater happening right now? The answer is actually yes and no. There's always crazy people saying and doing crazy things. So you need to consider that.
Well, the guy threatening Biden's kind of like similar. Is that indicative of a bigger picture? It's like, why is he doing that either? People need to calm down. Killing Biden wouldn't do anything. It just would make the Democrats stronger. It's like these threats are stupid. It's like it's only another year of Biden at this point. Like, calm down. We survived the 3. It's going to be another unfortunate year. It's probably going to get worse. But if you killed him, you think that would make anything better? Now Kamala Harris wins, and then it gives the Democrats more power, and everyone's going to think the right is crazy. All the independents, and then Gavin Newsom or somebody wins next time. It's like, how is that better?
300 and some odd million people in this country, you are going to have wackos. But at the same time, I think it's important to understand how this feeds into a growing political escalation, which is apparent to anyone who's paying attention. The answer being, some people seem to think that when I say we are on track for a civil war, they can't get in their mind what that means because they've not read history of this country or other countries. So the only thing they can imagine is a whole bunch of Democrats grabbing weapons and marching through the streets and a whole bunch of Republicans grabbing weapons, and they clash at the first Battle of Bull Run. which is nowhere close to what I'm talking about. I'm talking about social destabilization. I'm talking about economic collapse and balkanization. And there's some really interesting conversations about what might happen if they try to remove Trump from the ballot. Could they then remove Biden from the ballot in other states for his alleged crimes? And then what do you get? You get statewide balkanization. Who then recognizes the executive branch of this country? Yeah, you see where it's going. It doesn't result in armed factions marching to the street. It could result in something like this. Let's say Spanish Civil War. Far leftists start taking control of institutions, start arresting and locking people up and torturing them. And then eventually you get a prominent military.
No one's getting tortured yet, but they're trying to lock Trump and his allies up just for doing stuff that they thought was legal. Nixon did the same thing with the electoral college that they wanted to do in 2020 in the 60s. And that was all legal, and it went through when he was vice president. And now it's just like, no, you wanted to try something that actually has precedent from 50 years ago. No, we're gonna try to lock you up for it.
Figure with many loyal individuals who follow his orders, and thus civil war starts when a military, when a branch of the military or a high-ranking individual says, we're not following this anymore. So let's say someone in law enforcement, in military or whatever, and I'm talking about anyone, like, you can't have this perception of what is legal and what is not legal, because all that is what people are willing to do. What if someone who's in the military says, we are going to go and shut down these prisons that are torturing American citizens because we've sworn an oath to defend this country from enemies, both foreign and domestic? Something like that. You might be arguing they have no authority to do that. They would never do that. Yeah, a lot of people are doing things without the authority to do so, right? The point is, you need to stop thinking in terms of rigid human structures.
That's what people believe.
There are a lot of people. I love this. I love this example. There are people who think that if you sign a contract,
most of the COVID stuff that they did with the lockdowns was unlawful, but they did it anyway, and then they selectively enforced it too during BLM. People just went and did whatever they wanted.
The contract. I'm sorry, it's like I tricked you into signing away power of attorney. Aha! Now I can sell your house. Yeah, that'll never work. It just won't, because humans interpret. So you might be tricked into signing a contract, and then they go. You have these TV shows, like they did that one on Netflix about AI, Black Mirror, where they're like, well, no, you signed the contract and now they have the rights to your life. It's like, oh, darn. Does not fly. You can't trick someone into entering a contract. The judge will just throw it out and say the contract is void. The thing is, humans decide whether or not things are upheld, and courts have very little enforcement power. When the Supreme Court says a thing, it's mostly just because people decide they have to do it because they said so. If at some point a large faction says, I'll just decide to do something else, then something else be done. Here's the story. A Chicago former social studies teacher, woman, was arrested by federal agents on Monday after she allegedly threatened to shoot GOP frontrunner Donald Trump and his youngest son, Barron.
Wow.
According to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Chicago, 41-year-old Tracy Marie Fiorenza was arrested on Monday morning on the charge of transmitting threats to kill or injure, the Daily Mail reported. I'm not going to read what she said, but she made these threats, very insane threats. The email was reportedly sent to the head of the Palm Beach Area Educational Institution. In a similar email, Fiorenza allegedly wrote on June 5th that she would into Barron Trump with his father in self-defense. I just want to point out, you get these Twitch streamers who are like, we should all go and commit X action in a video game. Dude, that does not work. Okay, please take this into consideration. Leftist streamers who advance criminal action, but say in a video game, we should all go and overthrow in a video game. You see? Yeah, it doesn't work. Doesn't work. She said in self-defense, and then they came and arrested her for it. You see how that works? Agents reportedly interviewed Fiorenza on June 14th at the agency's Chicago field office, during which time she was shown copies of the emails and admitted to sending them, agents said. The affidavit states that Fiorenza lives in Plainfield, Illinois, a Chicago suburb. Wow, that's crazy. I know Plainfield all too well.
According to
CBS News Chicago, Fiorenza made her first court appearance on Monday afternoon, where a judge said that her case must be heard in Florida, where the charges were filed. She is scheduled to appear back in Chicago's federal court on Wednesday, where the judge will decide how she will be transported to Florida.
Wow. What's that saying? Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
On Facebook, going by the name Tracy Fiorenza de Rothschild, she claims to be a former social studies teacher at Chicago public schools. In one post, she wrote that the Trump family Hollywood pedo ring in the arts followed home staff and students from Oxbridge Academy in St. Andrew's Episcopal Church School in Maryland. Barron Trump was so this is like insane psycho conspiracy stuff. Barron Trump was enrolled in classes at both educational institutions, but never physically attended a single day. Blah, blah, blah. This is nuts.
Yeah.
Oh, these people are crazy.
I don't really know what
she's convinced. This is Blue Anon, like Democrat psycho conspiracy babble stuff. She posted a photo of a Trump effigy hanging. This is crazy. I suppose a lot of people are surprised there was no pre-dawn raid for this violent and deranged individual. Let me just stress, when you got a 300-pound guy posting pictures of himself in body armor with weapons, you're probably a bit more concerned about your safety, despite the fact the man was 70 years old. When you have a small, frail woman doing the same thing, you probably consider a lot less. So I'm just going to say, you can't come to me and say, like, these small, petite women have no business being cops because they're being overpowered by a single man. There's that viral video where one guy just beats 3 female officers and they can't do anything about it.
Jeez.
If we recognize that women tend to be smaller, less muscle mass, less bone density, et cetera, yeah, I don't think the feds are going to be all too worried about some frail woman in her house. She doesn't appear to be armed. It is what it is. But where do we go from here? Let's talk about the real elements of what could lead to civil war. We have institutional collapse, weaponization of government. You've got individuals being held without charge or trial in violation of the Constitution, due process, etc., in these prisons in D.C. over January 6th. One individual is just seen in photographs in what appears to be a janitor's mop closet. Crazy.
Why?
This is torture. You have this story. Pickup truck mows down multiple pedestrians as it flees cop car after doing donuts in Atlanta street show. Social order breaking down. No confidence in the system, no confidence in law enforcement, no respect for the system at all. These trucks going about their business because they don't think the cops are going to do anything about it. And if the cops try, they don't think the cops have any authority. The authority of the police officer only extends into their physical abilities. You take a look at the far left. They have something called de-arrest. A cop will arrest someone. The activists will attack the police and pull that person away and de-arrest them. Why? Because they understand the concept of natural law. Conservatives live very much in this rigid world where it's like, you can't do that because the law says. Leftists live in this world of you can do anything so long as you have power. So they will take these actions. But let's think about the natural conclusion to these things. People increasingly getting more violent and targeting politicians. Not that I think this story is anything more, the Secret Service one, like this lady was just nuts. But you take a look at social order breakdown in these cities. And eventually, you're going to have an inverse. Right now, you have many of these people on the left doing whatever they want. I say they're on the left, but many of these people who vote Democrat, mind you, or don't vote at all, they're looting Nordstrom, they're looting Nike, they're storming into 7-Elevens, they're just taking whatever they want, just stealing from Walgreens, and it's been getting worse over the past several years. Eventually, you'll get the inverse, vigilantes. I mean, it's not even fair to call them vigilantes. If there's no law enforcement, then law enforcement must emerge. How soon until we get locals getting armed and guarding stores? How soon?
I mean, that's what Kyle Rittenhouse did, right? He was armed and he was defending stuff. And then they tried to put him away for murder when he got attacked by lawless people trying to attack him because he was doing that. They weren't happy with that. They couldn't burn down a gas station. He put the fire out. They're like, no, we're going to hurt you. Then he defended himself lawfully, and they tried to get him for murder. It's insane.
After that, do you have people just acting like the federal government and law enforcement and the county sheriff and all that don't matter? Because you're going to have a guy who says, the only one stopping this crime is going to be me. And then the police likely will go after the law-abiding citizens.
Yeah,
why?
like Kyle Rittenhouse, yeah.
It's infinitely easier to arrest someone who believes in the law than someone who doesn't. Someone who believes in the law is going to be like, well, okay, I guess you got me. But my point is this. Eventually, no one will believe in the law. So when that sheriff or that federal law enforcement agent shows up to this neighborhood watch who's been guarding their local supermarket, and they say you are acting illegally with illegal weapons, blah, 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 these people are going to be like, you are just some random people who've shown up. Imagine it this way. Your grocery store keeps getting looted. We see the videos over and over again, people going in, filling up carts and just leaving. Eventually, the supermarket announces we're going to have to shut down because this is not sustainable. Locals who need the supermarket say we're going to form a watch group to guard this store and prevent the shoplifting. Eventually, someone comes in, tries stealing a bunch of stuff. A fight breaks out. The person's armed. There's a shootout. Somebody dies. The local neighborhood watch security group then has the local police come and medics deal with the issue and take the body. But then you get the lawsuits, the anger, the protests, the riots. Federal law enforcement shows up.
Mm-hmm.
But consider it this way. In your mind, you're imagining a guy in a uniform with a badge. Now understand that if people don't have confidence in that badge and that system, the man may as well be a dude in a flannel and blue jeans. Now imagine this. A neighborhood watch group guarding their store from violent criminals who are armed and have hurt people in the past and are trying to destroy their community. These people are armed guarding the store when several vehicles pull up and men with guns jump out. These men are wearing white T-shirts and blue jeans. The people guarding the store are going to say, get down and drop your weapons. And the people in the blue jeans are going to say, no, you drop your weapons. The point is, obviously, I'm referring to law enforcement pulling up. But if the people who live in this community feel like there is no law enforcement the same way the criminals do, you see where this goes. This is where we get into Civil War territory. When police break down, not to mention many of these cops will be locals and they'll say, we're not going to enforce this. There's going to be local cops who are like, our hands are tied. We can't arrest these people because the courts let them go. So vigilante groups arise and take the place of security. These police are then told to go and stop the vigilante groups. And they say, no way. That's John. He runs the barbershop. That's Janet. She runs the bakery. I'm not going to go and screw with them. They're my neighbors. State law enforcement has to come in. These guys are foreigners as far as anyone else is concerned. And they say, get out. You don't enforce the laws here at all. We're not going to stand for it. That is the breaking point. But I don't know exactly how this plays out. I'm just saying. This is what people don't seem to understand. They seem to think it's going to be like all the red state governors come together and sign a decree and say, we hereby declare civil war. Bang. Yeah, no.
Yeah, no.
Not going to happen that way. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. on this channel.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, this woman is crazy. And the guy that got shot in Provo, he's also crazy. Like, why? Everyone's just just go take legal means. Convince your representatives or whatever to impeach Biden or vote him out. Now they're doing ballot harvesting. The right is like crazy because that was a huge flaw in 2020 because it's like Tim was just saying, like the laws and stuff. There are laws on the books that you can do ballot harvesting, but the right doesn't like it because they don't think it's like should be legal. So they haven't done it. But that's changing. Take advantage of these laws. You just kind of have to. How are you going to let the left do it and not do it yourself and then expect to win? But the right has way more power than they think. I mean, look at all the stuff with Bud Light and everything. And I think the right's really starting to wake up. I think the Bud Light thing and the Target thing is really starting to open people's minds. Like, okay, maybe we are the majority. Maybe we can win. And I definitely think that's true. I think more people lean right now than ever. The leftists went so far left. 20 years ago, it was like the left and the right weren't that much different. We disagreed on taxes and stuff, right? Not that much, maybe some small social programs. Now it's like the left just wants to be full-blown socialist. They hate America. They hate American flags. They just want to be just like Europe. They want to move to Europe. America's awful. America's awful. America's awful. I hate the national anthem. It's like it's so different now. It's just like people that are real Americans versus people that hate America. Before it was like Americans left versus right Americans. But it's changed so much, and yeah, the conflict is getting out of control. And like I've said, if Trump wins in 2024, which I think he's going to, the left is gonna lose their minds. But in a way, it'll probably be good. It'll show people like normies, like people that aren't really on the political spectrum, like, wow, the left are the crazy ones. Because with January 6th, they tried to paint it the opposite way. Like, okay, people are in there and look at how bad it is. When, like I've said before, maybe there's a few Trump supporters there, actual Trump supporters that committed crimes, and they should be prosecuted for that. I don't know. For trespassing, you get 5 years in prison. That's a little much. Even if they're an Antifa member, if they didn't do anything actually violent, but we know they're part of Antifa, you give them the normal sentence, right? But most of those people there were Antifa. The people breaking the windows, they were masked. The Trump supporters weren't masked, and they were breaking windows and did all this violence, and basically none of those guys were even charged. How come we can't find them? Very interesting, right? So if that is the only, if the whole group the next time is all Antifa, what do you think will happen to the Capitol then? They tried to burn down the White House in 2020, but then, the military, the Capitol Police or whoever, they stopped them, the DC Police, they stopped them. But if they're just so overwhelmed and they can't stop them, that is going to be insane. And that is going to create a lot of conflict. I don't think Law and Order, though, like Tim was saying, is really going to break down that much. It would have to get really, really, really bad. Maybe in like 10 years if it just kept going in the wrong direction. So I guess like if Antifa burned down the Capitol or something in 2024, something crazy, and then Joe Biden basically became president because of it. I could see national conflict for that, for sure. But I think Joe Biden's too feeble. That's the thing. Like, I've thought about this. They were projecting because they thought Trump wasn't going to give up power. I'm like, well, what if Biden doesn't give up power? He's too feeble. It's just like, it's not like he's some jacked guy like that can actually do this, But I guess we'll see what happens. Very interesting. But with that, let's move on to the next story. New reports raise questions about Biden's role in the Burisma situation. Let's check out a clip.
All right, our two-tiered system of justice strikes yet again. According to reports, DOJ Inspector General Michael Horowitz now has informed Congress that a, quote, potential jurisdictional issue may prevent him from investigating whistleblower complaints alleging a cover-up in the Hunter Biden criminal probe.
So interesting. This story just keeps getting more and more developed. It's not, they just don't leave it alone with the statute of limitations. It's just now there's even more.
So is the DOJ limiting its own inspector general from fully investigating what are serious allegations of preferential treatment for Hunter Biden? And meanwhile, after laughing off the Hunter disaster for years, Democrats are now becoming somewhat distraught, at least behind closed doors. Anyway, here with reaction is Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson. I hear a big debate in your state tomorrow. Senator, I'm not sure if you're going to be there or not.
Oh, no, I'm definitely going to be attending.
Who cares?
So hopefully we'll
Why they even bring this up? Tell me about
Republican
Biden stuff.
Primary candidates.
I think people really watch to see who's going to be fighting who. I'm just guessing, though. Look,
I think people are just going to get behind Trump.
Done phenomenal work on this. As
all right, yeah, let's get to the important
Jordan
stuff.
And James Comer. Here's the question: do you see any jurisdictional conflicts for Michael Horowitz? Because I really don't quite get it.
I would really be interested in knowing what he's claiming. As I've stated in the past, Sean, federal law enforcement and federal agencies in general have done a great job at insulating themselves from congressional oversight and public scrutiny. I'd even argue from the management of a Republican president. So these folks are the law. They view themselves as above the law. And I've got to give a huge shout out to John Solomon for continuing to piece together these pieces of the puzzle to give us a clear view.
Sure.
Through his sources, through FOIA requests, that type of thing. It's great to go back there. Something else we ought to note is, State Department was singing Shokin's praises in June in the summer of 2015. Then Ambassador Pyatt gave a speech where he basically nudged Shokin to start investigating Burisma, and Shokin did. And so it was that aggressive, investigation into Burisma that panicked Hunter Biden. And then really, I think, caused the turnaround in Joe Biden's attitude toward Shokin and the $1 billion loan guarantee. Again, totally responsive to what Hunter's concerns were, because Hunter's making millions of dollars being on that board.
What do you make of the overall overarching issue involving President Joe Biden? Because he said he'd never spoken to his son, brother, or anybody for that matter. Then it evolved into, well, I was never in business with him. Now we know from Devin Archer that he was phoning into meetings with foreign business partners, then meeting with some of these oligarchs, massive amounts of money going to Hunter. He has no experience and energy. Then we have the WhatsApp message, I'm sitting here with my father. Then we have the whole leveraging $1 billion taxpayer dollars so Hunter can continue to get paid to get the prosecutor fired, which we now know from John Solomon was against U.S. policy at the time. Do you think we're looking at Joe Biden and a bribery and money laundering scandal? Is that how far you see it going?
Definitely.
Well, first of all, we know that Joe Biden is a liar ever since he plagiarized.
They won't prosecute him, but
a British politician back in the earlier presidential campaign.
Yeah, a long time
we
ago,
know that
80s.
he talked to Hunter about his overseas business deals.
He lies about everything.
And I revealed that on a report. So Joe Biden is a proven liar. His corruption is obvious. The corruption of his family is obvious.
I mean, what politician doesn't lie? And I mean, Joe Biden could probably get an award for politicians about how much he lies. I could see him being like the biggest one. So, yeah, he's really bad. So that's saying a lot.
The conflict of interest in Ukraine and in Burisma is obvious. It's just not obvious to the media. It probably is.
It
I don't know
is.
how
They
much
just don't want
more
to talk about
evidence is going to be required. But again, because of the good work of Jordan and Comer and Solomon and what the foundation of the Grassley and I laid down, we're starting to piece together that evidence. And it's going to, at some point in time, become so obvious, even the corrupt and complicit media will have to admit it and start reporting on it.
They've started.
Honestly, that hasn't happened yet.
It seems to be starting, at least with the Washington Post and New York Times and their reports and the Politico report. DOJ policy says that you have to be outside of the department to be appointed special counsel. We know that the whistleblowers are saying that Mr. Weiss is lying as it relates to him, what he said to them, and what both Merrick Garland and Mr. Weiss have said publicly, that he had full authority to go into other jurisdictions. That's something we really need to get to the bottom of. And then we have the whole issue of, now we understand that Weiss's plan was to not even charge Hunter with anything. That evolved into the sweetheart deal only because of the IRS whistleblowers that Hunter Biden's lawyers apparently wanted investigated. But then we now know that resulted in a plea deal, the sweetheart plea deal, but that was only plan B. And even the judge is asking the prosecutors, you ever see a deal like this? No, I never saw one like this before. Okay. And thankfully, the judge actually read the plea deal. How do you interpret all this?
Well, first of all, the being outside government's been waived in the past. I think the more important requirement of a special counsel is they need to be independent. And if you look at the 8 billion people on the planet Earth, I don't think Merrick Garland could have found somebody less independent than David Weiss. You're right. He was in charge of that sleazy plea agreement. And that's what it was. It was sleazy. They were trying to pull the wool over the judge's eyes. He's the one that allowed the statute of limitations to run out on the Burisma.
Yeah, Weiss used to work with Hunter Biden's brother, and they hid something on the back page of the plea deal, and the judge read the whole thing, and they're like, oh, wait, no.
Tax payments and the tax payments due on those. Hunter Biden still hasn't reported the $400,000 of income that Eric Schreier, his advisor, told him he needed to report back in 2019. So this is obvious tax evasion. This is obvious criminal activity. And David Weiss was willing to just look the other way for over 5 years. And he's the one appointed special counsel. This is a sick joke.
All right. Senator, hopefully we'll get to bump into each other tomorrow night. Look forward to being.
This is just insane. It's crazy how more and more keeps coming out about this. I love it because it just keeps it in the news cycle. More and more, these small little things. Now the new guy saying he doesn't have the jurisdiction to prosecute him. They just want to, like I've said in other videos or shown in other videos, they just want to sit on their hands and wait for the statute of limitations to run up so then they can't prosecute him. Hey, we take another few years, well, statute of limitations. They don't want to prosecute him at all. But it's really interesting because, like I said, the news cycle, the media started to catch on. They're starting to turn on Joe Biden. They're starting to turn on Hunter Biden. And then that's just going to make more of the general populace realize, oh, wait, what is this? How come he can get away with this, and why don't they want to prosecute him, and, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah. Well, let's just hope just more and more stuff. Some of these congressmen that keep digging into it, and some of these reporters, they're doing some really good work. And I think in the long run, it might just, end up biting Biden and Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, even if he doesn't actually get prosecuted. It's probably just going to ruin both of their careers. And then if like Trump's DOJ gets in there, it's tricky with the statute of limitations, but who knows if they can find them on certain things that don't have that long or have a very long statute and it's not short, and they can get them on stuff. They're definitely going to push them into it, but it's definitely going to need some public outcry, and the majority of people are going to want it to happen, because like people on the far left right now, they don't want anything to do with Hunter Biden. They say he's innocent and all this stuff, or whatever they say. I don't really know what they say on the left, but on the far left, but I'm guessing that's what they're saying. Like, we don't want to. It's nonsense. Donald Trump Jr. That's kind of always what I say. It's Donald Trump Jr. That's who we have to go after. He's the corrupt one. You guys are just trying to blame Hunter when he's innocent. He's just trying to get over his drug addiction, and you guys don't understand. So you're trying to prosecute him for all this stuff. The stuff he did was really not good. Like he's getting paid millions of dollars to go and have a say from the vice president. The vice president can do all this stuff. Like Joe Biden said in that CFR meeting, oh, yeah, ask Obama if you're not getting the $1 billion. You don't fire the prosecutor, you're not getting the $1 billion. It's like this stuff is so obvious, and then they still defend him. But I think that's going away because the evidence just keeps piling up and piling up and piling it up. And the Congress keeps subpoenaing more and more stuff. So it's going to be very interesting in the long run to see how this plays out. But with that, let's move on to the next story. More crazy stuff in weather. Major flooding strikes Grand Canyon southern rim. Let's check out a clip. This is insane. Let me turn this down. Sorry for the volume there. Look at this. This is crazy. I've seen like this in Austin, like a way back, like in 2018. It's awful. Austin's gotten really good. Like they did a tunnel in the Waterloo area, if you're familiar with the city at all, by like Riverside, Waterloo Park. And they built this huge 80-foot tunnel under the park. It's just huge. So, and then that helped with the floodplain so much. And I think that's why there hasn't been as much flooding, I don't think this is like typical for the Grand Canyon. So I don't know if that would be a good idea for there, because Austin's so prone to flooding. We did it here. But, yeah, very interesting. Hopefully the damage isn't too bad and gets taken care of. I hope everyone's safe and they get that, taken care of as soon as possible. But with that, let's move on to the next story. Rudy Giuliani heads to Georgia to be booked in election case. Let's check out a clip.
We are back with a Fox News alert. Earlier this hour, former Mayor Rudy Giuliani left New York City for Georgia, where he'll be booked as an alleged co-conspirator in connection with former President Trump's election interference case.
Yeah,
and Trump posting
case.
that he, quote, will probably be arrested tomorrow in Georgia. Bail bondsman Scott Hall and former Trump lawyer John Eastman were the first of 18 co-defendants to turn themselves into
Fani,
the Fulton
Willis,
County
or Lewis,
jail.
whatever her name is.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
No one cares. But yeah, so now Giuliani's he's getting prosecuted. We knew this was going to happen a while ago, but yeah, now he's reporting. His lawyers just think it's funny. Their mugshots, they're just smiling. They think it's so stupid. They're just going to win on appeal anyways. Everyone knows it. They might be able to get him on Fulton County, and I'm not even convinced that that's going to happen. The two Congress people there, we'll get into that story next, about how another Republican member of the state Congress, they want to impeach the prosecutor. So it might not even go through. All this is all just dumb. It's a waste of everyone's time. Now Giuliani has to just fly to Georgia for a BS case. It's so boring. But this is what they're gonna do. The prosecutor campaigned. She got funded by George Soros partially. She campaigned on getting Trump and all these leftists. That's what they want to do. I don't even know what their plan is or if they have a plan for 2024. It just seems like it's backfiring. They're doing all this stuff, trying to prosecute Trump, and all it's doing is helping him in the polls. But they keep doing it. Another indictment, another indictment, another indictment. A couple weeks ago, Trump was just like, he had 3 indictments at the time. He's like, hey, if we get one more, we're going to be unstoppable. He's like, we have 3 indictments. We're already ahead in the polls. If we could get one more, we got this. Especially if they arrest them and have him take a mugshot, and they're going to, right? This is crazy. What's is happening tomorrow? Yeah, crazy talk. So, they're gonna have him take a mugshot because they're having all of his allies take mugshots, and then it's just gonna get plastered everywhere. There's gonna be shirts. Mark Dice already has a wanted for president shirt with a mugshot on it that he's selling. I bet he's selling a ton of those. And wait for the official one. That's just like a mock-up mugshot. They're going to everyone's going to have T-shirts on it, wanted for president, look at what America's came to and stuff. They're just going to celebrate it. And the independents and everybody are just going to be like, what is happening? And they have to have some pretty good evidence. And if Trump gets off, and his allies get off, or if they get convicted and then win on appeal, the normal people are just going to be like, what was all this about? And people are starting to look. It's all just so like backfiring to me on them, because then people are just going to be like, well, okay, Joe Biden, has he done anything wrong? And then you start looking at the Joe Biden stuff, and then it just brings more attention onto that. You would think they'd just leave Trump alone, but they know he's going to win. So they're going to do everything, but it gives him even more power to win, though. A lot of people are getting bored with Trump before the indictments. People are like, oh, maybe we should just move on. He's not as interesting that he used to be. Maybe there's a better candidate out there. Maybe like Dave Smith from the Libertarian Party, something like that. And now after the indictments, everyone's just like, no. I'm getting behind Trump. This is nonsense. Especially this latest one. Now they're indicting his lawyers. It's like, oh my goodness, it's not a good plan, but this is what they're doing. It's just what they're doing. And it's just going to keep helping him and helping him and helping him. And again, if he gets convicted, it's just going to help him more. Getting the mugshot's going to help him more. The indictments are just going to help him more. People just want Trump to get back in there so he can just destroy all this. Because it's scary, like as an independent or whatever, right? Even if you don't like Trump, it's this. What type of precedent is this setting? You don't even have attorney-client privilege. If you go to a lawyer and you think something's legal and they talk to you about it and they're like, oh no, yeah, you can do this, and then you get prosecuted and they get prosecuted just for talking about it. That's what this Georgia case is. They were talking about the legal ways of looking into election fraud and what they can do to make sure that there wasn't cheating involved. And that's all legal. It's all legal. And then they were talking about it. They were just talking about it. No. The lawyer thinks that it's legal. No. They knew Trump was lying. They're lying. Everyone's lying. So then you got to prove that they were lying. And all lawyers lie anyways. I've never heard of such a thing. So if a lawyer gives bad advice, they get prosecuted for it? It's just, wow. Like, how? I think that's crazy to me. You go to a lawyer and ask for advice, and then he gives you bad advice, and then you follow it, and then you both get prosecuted, even though you didn't even commit a crime. Nixon did this stuff. Other people have done this. Hillary Clinton and stuff. They brought up challenges in 2016. No one's getting prosecuted. No one's even thinking they should get prosecuted. Well, for that, the email servers and a lot of other things Hillary Clinton's done. That's a whole different story. But they just want to get Trump on all this stuff just because he talked to lawyers about it. And they're like, okay, no, you can do this. You could do this. We could challenge in court here. We can do this. We can investigate this. Like the one people, they invited Trump to go, one of the authorities there, they invited Trump and his team to go look at one of the precincts, I believe. And then they're all getting prosecuted. It's like they thought all this was legal. And the lawyers all thought it was legal. I mean, how do you determine if it's legal or not, right? And I guess that's what they're trying to get him on. But then you're going to go do a jury trial for this? A jury's not going to know if this stuff is legal. You got to like do a bench trial and let a judge decide. But I mean, the judge is letting this prosecution go through and everything, right? They haven't thrown out the case. None of these judges have. But it just shows corruption. Just shows a lot of corruption. And it's just, yeah, it's crazy. And they're just going to lose on appeal anyways. So it's just a waste of time. This is meant to rile up their base on the left, I think. And it's meant to waste Trump's time. But it's not even wasting his time because it just gets, I'm talking about it. Everyone's talking about it. It's just getting a ton of media coverage. He's raising in the polls. It's just if they would have indicted Trump, Ron DeSantis' campaign is kind of falling apart. But that's where a lot of people before his first indictment in New York some months back. I saw people like really considering DeSantis. They're like, oh, I don't know, he did a good job in Florida. But after the indictments, they're like, no one should be running against Trump. Everyone endorsed Trump. This is nonsense. They're just trying to get him on BS. We all know it's BS. And Ron DeSantis barely even goes and calls it out. You know, good thing for Vivek Ramaswamy. They're thinking this is like a witch hunt. This is some banana republic nonsense because it is. That's what Ron DeSantis should be saying, and they should be dropping out and getting behind Trump. The only person that I think could maybe stay in, I'm torn on it, is Vivek, because he is getting attention because he's running for president, and he's basically endorsing Trump. He's saying he wants to win against Trump, but he's out there saying, okay, no, this is nonsense. We shouldn't be doing this. It's banana republic. Look at the precedent it sets. He wouldn't be getting that attention if he wasn't running for president. He would just be a normal guy. But because he's running for president, it makes his voice way louder. And now because he's running for president, he's on all these podcasts and stuff. So it's like a good ally. And I think Trump's probably just going to end up choosing him for vice president. He was even saying, like, the debate tonight, it's really funny. He was like, oh, yeah, let's see if someone arises that I might choose for vice president. And you know he's only talking about Vivek, right? Mike Pence betrayed him. Ron DeSantis betrayed him. Everyone else is just so far in the polls, and they're extremely boring, so he's not going to choose any of them. So, yeah, but I think Vivek's probably going to lose in Iowa, go until then, get attention, and then he's probably going to drop out as soon as possible, and then Trump's probably going to choose him as his vice president, and Vivek's probably just going to keep gaining in the polls because of how much of an ally he's shown to be towards Trump. So, should be a very interesting election cycle. But with that, let's move on to the next story. Second Republican moves to impeach Fani Willis. Here is a clip.
I want to jump to this story from the Post-Millennial.
The volume.
Donald Trump will be arrested by Fani Willis on Thursday in Atlanta. He says, I'll be going to Atlanta, Georgia on Thursday to be arrested by a radical left district attorney. And in the context,
this is all tomorrow, so definitely subscribe to the channel, follow me. I'll definitely be covering this with all the details tomorrow.
All of this, the Agenda 2030 type stuff, more so how Democratic politicians agree with climate lockdown ideas and want to stop climate change, those kinds of things. The future I envision with an unobstructed Donald Trump is secure borders, you having a job somewhere, factories coming back, and kind of the older way of doing things. What Democrats want, and I mean this literally, I'm not going to use any euphemisms or conspiracies, like literally when they talk about climate change, they want a reduction in fossil fuels. They don't want factories. They want to outsource. They want you to,
and most of them hate nuclear too, so it's all nonsense. They want solar, wind, and all these lithium-ion batteries. That's a bit worse for the earth. Either they're stupid or they're ignorant, or they're just lying, right? Because why not nuclear, and why all these lithium-ion batteries and stuff, which is terrible for the planet to produce them. And what do you do with them when they're obsolete and they need to be recycled? It's really hard to recycle them. It's getting better, the tech to recycle them, but for right now,
I want to say own nothing and be happy, because that's more World Economic Forum. But they very much want you to live in your cubicle box and just be told what to do and do what you want. And many of the people in cities seem to be completely okay with it. Donald Trump is an inversion of that. And for that, he is their biggest threat. So, of course, Trump will be arrested. But we do have more news on this. A second Georgia lawmaker is seeking the impeachment of rogue District Attorney Fani Willis. So with everything we've talked about so far in terms of degrowth and Agenda 2030, climate lockdowns, COVID lockdowns may be coming back, it is not a foregone conclusion. There is a very clear path to victory, and I think it is the obvious path to victory, and I think it is the likely path to victory. I think it is the likely outcome. Donald Trump only lost in 2020 by a margin of about 42,000 votes in 3 states. I think it is unlikely they screw it up this time. Trump has already said we need a ballot harvesting operation. There are already being moves made. There's more activism ramping up, and the Democrats don't have the advantage of hard lockdowns.
They need 100 Scott Presslers is what they need. They need to get rid of Ronna McDaniels. That's one thing that I wanted to ask you. What is your take on Ronna McDaniel?
Ronna McDaniels is the chairman of the the chairman of the RNC, Republican National Committee, I think, conference. Yeah, but that's who she is.
Putting me on the spot.
I know.
Well, I like to call her Ronna Romney McDaniel. Don't forget that.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Honestly, you've just literally given me your opinion
You
on
buried
McDaniel.
the lead. No, I think the RNC loves to fundraise a bunch of money off of well-meaning patriots, use it to use really, really cushy, retreats at 5-star resorts and do absolutely nothing. And I think they spit in the face and they're laughing behind the backs of people like Scott Pressler, people who are actually doing the work. And I don't think anyone should give any money to the RNC, and look no further than the antics they've been up to with this whole debate that's happening tomorrow, trying to get Trump to join in on it. Ronna is a joke. She spends, I think, a lot of the money on lip fillers. No.
Do you? I'm not going to touch that one. Do you feel? Why do you feel like Trump got behind her? Or what do you think he was thinking? Because I think that was probably one of the worst things that he did since he's been out of office, is actually putting his support behind Ronna McDaniel.
He also put his weight behind Kevin McCarthy, which I thought was very interesting.
In my opinion, she's the biggest person at fault for allowing the Democrats to just outperform them, to outpolitic them. You know, it's like on the ground game that the Republicans had was such an embarrassment compared to the Democrats. And the Democrats run rings around them. And it's Ronna McDaniel's fault. She was in charge. So, like, where's the accountability, you know, and what are they actually doing to make sure that it doesn't happen again? Because if you I really do think that the biggest culprit for why Donald Trump isn't in the White House now is Ronna McDaniels and the RNC.
Yeah. I think it's twofold. I think in addition to the RNC just being like the abysmal.
And that's a big reason why in 2022 there wasn't bigger gains. A lot of Trump allies, like American First people, they gave them like no money. The RNC did. So
little sister of the DNC couldn't even compete if they wanted to. I also think the DNC has sort of an extension of an apparatus that is the groups like the Center for Tech and Civic Life, right? Sure. The Zuckerberg type groups. And we, just because we are the right, we don't have that. And I would argue that independent of the DNC, I think those so-called nonprofits, that really shady dark money apparatus, is what allowed Democrats to win more.
So you're not Ronna, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot. So, but why do you think it is that, like,
I'm definitely not Ronna.
I know. So I'm not trying, like I said, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. So then why do you think it is that, like, nothing was done? Like, why is it that she, like, because
reelected.
The things, Democrats have a history of having a better ground game, and because of the fact that they tend to cluster in urban areas, it's easier for them to do things like get, ballot harvest. Why is it that Ronna hasn't, nobody has thought about the fact that this is, this is the way things are? Like, why weren't they prepared? I don't know.
No, I think, it's the same question and the same answer and the same logical just anger that you get when you ask why House Republicans aren't doing anything really meaningful when it comes to the Hunter Biden investigation, to impeaching Joe Biden, to these COVID mandates, to defunding the government. And I think the issue is it's exactly and precisely people like Ronna who really to their core, maybe they're Republican, but they're not really conservative. Again, I was going to say Trump supporters, MAGA type, but I know that for some people that might not necessarily be what they identify with. But I think these are people who are very okay with the status quo. because the status quo means that they retain their power. And I don't really think Ronna cares if Republicans lose elections. I just think she wants to retain her position.
Phil, would anybody go watch the Harlem Globetrotters if the Washington Generals won? They'd be.
I would buy tickets to the next game.
It would be interesting,
yeah,
to be completely honest. But I hate to break this to you, Phil, but the Generals, they're meant to lose.
I mean, I wish that we had a legitimate opposition party.
It looked like we were Turning Point USA. Charlie Kirk, I think they were. Who was it? Harmeet Dillon running against.
Harmeet was. I thought
And
Harmeet
don't
was
forget Mike
going to win.
Lindell. No.
Oh, they both were?
Yes, Mike Lindell was.
The energy in the room was electrifying at Turning Point when we were talking about it. Harmeet was there, and I thought, like, of course, it's like confirmation bias. I was like, she's definitely going to win with this kind of support. It was only like 1,000 people, and of course, you get caught up in your own smell. But like, then I mean, that's the lively Republican base is Charlie Kirk and Turning Point. Like that's
young people,
young people.
Yeah. So
Scott
I just
Pressler.
don't know why. I mean, I don't know if there's malfeasance behind the scenes, and that's why Ronna took it. If Ronna's just more popular on the global stage, so that's why she got it. Did they vote
Well,
money?
I also think the RNC.
I think that Ronna just knows, like, she's an incumbent. She just is owed a lot of favors, and she knows these people. I think she barely won, so in their last election for the chair.
The election, right? It's not actually Americans voting, it's people within the confines of the RNC. And I think what you're talking about, right, the disconnection, or rather disconnect between the grassroots activist, actual MAGA type people and the selection of Ronna. And it's sort of like the same phenomenon, I would argue, with Trump in 2016, where that was the first time there was a candidate who actually appealed to the actual Republican voting base as opposed to the more elite, donor class. And I think, unfortunately, the RNC, I mean, there's a reason it has the reputation it does for the most part. And there are some RNC members who are, more populist, who are, come on War Room all the time and are always willing and down to slam Ronna. But I think, unfortunately, most of the members of the RNC, because think about how you get to be in the RNC. You don't get to be a member of the RNC or the committeeman or committeewoman if you're like a hardcore, outspoken, populist type, doing hardcore Trump activism.
Yeah, that's
they
kind
were
of the
against
problem,
Trump in 2016. So I think you have a lot of holdovers there who, again, not that it's about Trump as a person.
Yeah, but if you're like outspoken and don't like the establishment, it's so messed up. That's what's bad about government in general, because once they get established, how do you get rid of it? Right? Because like she was just saying, if you're outspoken against what Phil's saying, hey, it's nonsense. You're doing a really bad job, blah, 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 blah. How are you even going to get onto the RNC, the panel, to even vote? They're not going to put you on there.
It's about more than that. It's about the stripe of the Republican Party and the voters who get behind him. And I think the Ronna Romney McDaniels of the world, the elite Republican, the country club Republican class, has done everything in their power to suppress and quash that stripe of conservatism.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
Done. Settled.
There you go.
The party. Vivek, I was listening to him, Ramaswamy, on Sean Ryan's podcast last night, and he was saying how, like, it's really not about Republicans versus Democrats. It's about the, I guess you'd call it the administrative class versus everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They've got this stupid lock, and he's like, you got to fire them. You've got to cancel the FBI and reposition a lot of the people into other departments and things.
We should not have a political class.
I agree.
Yeah,
it's
I agree.
weird to me that there's a political class. That should not exist. People who are born and bred and educated for the sole purpose of being in charge of people makes no sense.
It's gross.
I'm sorry, that's how it maybe used to be with lords and stuff like that. But now this is supposed to be a country for, of, and by the people, which means it's supposed to be a
that was
person.
the part of the revolution, right? Is to get away from all that, the lords and all this stuff. Yeah, we're all supposed to be, it's equal and everything like that. And then if you are someone that just is bred to be part of the political class, how evil are you? No one wants power over other people. No normal people. The people that want power over other people are going to be slightly evil, right? They want power, and then these are the people who run for politics and get elected. It's kind of changing. Trump kind of changed it. When he won and he was an outsider candidate, that's kind of like blew up a lot of other people, like Matt Gaetz and stuff. They're like, okay, normal people can win. So That's pretty cool. But generally speaking, in this country, like right now, we need to get a lot more people out, like Mitch McConnell, Kevin McCarthy. Get them out of there. Get some new people in there. Even if they're like, to all of her faults, AOC, I don't like AOC. I think her politics are nonsense. I think she lies about everything. But what I like is she's like new. At least she's new, right? Because the person there before, they were just super establishment and you just knew what they thought. So even if we got some people in there that I don't agree with their policies in the slightest, and I don't even like them, at least it's fresh. And they haven't just been in there for 30, 50 years and can count on all these billionaire donors because they've known them for so long and everything. You know, I like the freshness, even if I don't like the people.
Who is running for office. Here's why. Here's my experience instead. Perhaps only because of the natural tendencies of man. People who, carpenters, plumbers, electricians, taxi drivers, you name it, astronauts. They're just like, look, I don't want to deal with these policies. Can we just get someone else to do it?
And that's how it happened in the federal government. Yeah. It came from laziness, according to Vivek. When he was on our show, he was discussing this about a month ago, that the people in Congress just didn't want to do the work anymore. So they outsourced it to the what do you call it? The Federal Reserve. Yeah. They create these external things to do their work that they should be doing.
That's because if they take votes and if they vote on the record, they have to answer to their constituents.
Well, yeah, and a lot of staffers, they'll just go and allocate this to staffers. I've heard this explained. I think it was Marjorie Taylor Greene, who you go get in there and you're like a fresh congressperson, but then all your staffers and advisors, they were just the same as the last congressperson. And that just always happens. So they're going to try to convince you to do stuff and everything. So it doesn't even change right away unless you're really principled and like, no, I'm not doing this. Like the Freedom Caucus, like Matt Gaetz and stuff, Lauren Boebert, they just don't want it. They want to change the whole thing. They want to get in there, go into Congress, make some change and get out. They don't want to go in there and make $200 million like Nancy Pelosi and stuff like that. But most people that go into Congress are like that. So it's like, how do you break that trend?
If they pass the buck to someone else, they can be, I didn't do it. So when they go back to, when Congress people go back to their areas, they can be like, oh, well, I tried and I told you I wouldn't. I tried to, but it didn't work. So because this is how it goes now. It's all about getting the less they're responsible for, the happier they are, because it's more likely they'll win
That's true.
They'll win re-election.
So taking responsibility for the actions is a huge part of why they outsource it or why they've been 100%. Trying to.
That's why they did it with Donald Trump with the not Donald Trump, with George Bush when it came to the Iraq war and stuff. They gave him the authorization for use of force. They're supposed to declare war. They didn't actually. That's what makes the Iraq war illegal, is the Congress doesn't have the authority to give the president the authority to make war. The president can react, so that the president can send the Marine Corps to, to save American lives or whatever. But the president can't conduct war. The Congress is supposed to declare war if we go to war.
That hasn't been true though since World War II, right?
Gave the president that power.
Am I wrong? I'm pretty sure they didn't declare war even in Vietnam. Maybe they did. I don't know, but maybe since Vietnam. I don't think Desert Storm. I don't think they had declaration of war there either in the 90s.
They didn't have the power to do.
But I guess both of those are George Bush, so
do that. So that means that the president didn't have the power because Congress didn't have the power to give the president the power. So when the president ordered all the troops into Iraq, it was illegal because he didn't have the legal authority. The authorization for the use of force is an unconstitutional document. It was an unconstitutional law.
So is the Federal Reserve Act also unconstitutional legal?
The Federal Reserve Act is unconstitutional. There was an amendment that I believe was only improperly
create money.
Improperly ratified. That was for the Federal Reserve. But the Federal Reserve, there are people that will make the argument that it is unconstitutional because it is not outlined in the Constitution. But there are also people that are going to say that the necessary and proper clause allows for it.
Thanks for watching this clip from the
Very interesting. They didn't really talk too much about the impeachment of Fani Willis. But yeah, they should impeach Fani Willis. She's corrupt. Everyone knows she's corrupt. Let's just get her out of there. I appreciate that people are doing this more. Brian Kemp, that governor, is just such a loser. He's just spineless. He doesn't want her impeached. He's kind of like backing her. And Trump got him elected. It's a lot like Ron DeSantis. They get him elected, and then they turn on him. And I just think that's fascinating, right? I mean, if Trump gets you elected and his fans vote for you and then you get elected based on it, what do you want to keep that support? What's going to happen next election? Do they really think that all these like rhinos are just going to, they have enough of them to support Kemp? No, Kemp is done after his reactions to all this. Get him, primary him, get him out of there. Nobody likes him anymore. People only, I think, voted for him in the first place because, like I said, Trump was endorsing him. And they're like, okay, Trump's endorsing him. Trump should really start being way more careful with who he endorses. Unless they're like a super American first person, why are you even endorsing anybody? Especially for governor, right? I guess they can help if someone like resigns. A lot of Congress people, if they resign, the governor appoints people. So I kind of get it. But at the same time, it's just like, ugh, like you endorse these like Ron DeSantis and Brian Kemp, and then they just backstab you. But then again, there's only so many people running in certain places. So at the same time. But I'll leave it there. Let's move on to the next story. This should be really interesting. We're going to talk about, is welfare destroying the United States economy? Let's roll the clip.
Do you have anybody in your family that overextended themselves by trying to help everybody in their family that eventually led to a divorce and a bankruptcy? Can you think about that person? I want you to think about this here. Let's just say you're making $63,000 per year, which is roughly $5,200 per month. What percentage of that income would you be comfortable giving to aging parents to help them out on a monthly basis? Maybe you said 10%. What's 10%? Roughly $500 a month. Fine. Now you may say, why are we using $63,000? Here's why. Because if you add 8 additional zeros to it, you would come out with America's income, which is roughly $6.3 trillion. However, do you know what percentage of that income America uses for entitlement programs? Ready? 52%. That means if you made $63,000 per year, you would give $33,000 away for entitlement programs. That's what we're doing in America right now.
That's not even tax,
other
other
$3.3
taxes.
trillion of entitlement program, $1.3 trillion of it is only towards welfare. That's 59 million Americans that on a monthly basis receive a welfare check, 19% of America. So the question becomes, is this sustainable? How long can America go until we go bankrupt? We're going to talk about that today. Okay, so if you get value out of this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Let's get right into it. So why are we talking about welfare? Because Biden just proposed that he wants to take that $1.3 trillion, of which 756 goes to Medicaid, 208 goes to other income security, 147 goes to food and nutrition like food stamps, 124 goes to housing, Section 8, 70 billion goes to unemployment. President Biden wants to raise that to $2.6 trillion, and it stays like that till 2033, costing you and I roughly $12.7 trillion over the next 10 years. Okay, so now let's break that down, the $2.6 trillion, to see where that money is going to be spent. Let's look all the way at the top. Child tax credit expansion for 3 years, $470 billion. By the way, we're going to go a little bit deeper into this program to see what that program is really all about. Government child care, $424. Government paid family leave, $325. Government preschool, $200 billion. 4 states to expand Medicaid, $200 billion. Expand Indian Health Service, $185. Medicaid home and community-based care, $150. Expand AITC, $137 billion. Expand Obamacare subsidies, $130 billion. Then we have double Pell Grant, $96 billion. Free community college, $90 billion. Expand housing subsidies, $60 billion. Public health, $43 billion. Behavioral health, equity-based tuition subsidies. Expand school meal subsidies. Extend trade adjustment assistance and Medicaid nutrition coverage. Total $2.6 trillion. It's interesting when I'm looking at these numbers because Cenk Uygur and I got into a debate specifically over this topic. You'll see what it is. But let me first explain to you what this child tax credit is. The American Rescue Plan increased the amount of child tax credit from $2,000 to $3,600 for qualifying children under age 6 and $3,000 for other qualifying children under the age of 18. So just think about it. The more kids you have, and if you're not in a marriage, you get more money given to you by the government. Guess what that incentivizes? We're going to talk about that here in a minute. Wait till you see the data on that. Second one, child care. Biden 2024 proposal includes $22 billion for existing early care and education programs, up from 10.5% from 2023 levels, including $9 billion for federal block grants. Paid family leave. The proposed program would provide workers up to 12 paid weeks off to bond with a new child, care for a family member, or heal from their own serious illness.
Paid weeks off. That's crazy. So you just get all that time off and you get paid, and I'm assuming that the the employer's paying for that. Insane. Or I guess it's tax credits.
So now you may be watching and saying, Pat, I get it. Where are you going with this? We have to help these people. They need help. What should we do? Just leave them alone? Well, let me give you an idea how we got here, because if you don't pay attention to this stuff, you're paying for it. Your taxes are going to increase. During the Great Depression, FDR wanted to come out with a temporary solution to help those who couldn't take care.
Really? If it's just tax credits, I have no problem with it. But yeah, then when they raise the taxes to help it, but if they're like, they just have to pay less, it's like, never going to be someone that's like, oh, shouldn't lower the taxes.
Themselves.
But I guess when you incentivize it, that's the bad thing. It's just like, okay, well, you get to pay less taxes, but that's because you're having kids when you're not married. Otherwise, you have to pay more taxes. So then it's just kind of just messes up the entire society, doesn't it?
Eventually, by 1935, at the State of Union address, FDR declared the time has come for action by the national government to provide security against the major hazards and uncertainties of life. He went on to propose the creation of the federal unemployment, the old age insurance program. He also called for guaranteed benefits for poor single mothers and their children, along with other dependent persons. And a few months later, the Social Security Act established a national welfare system. Keep in mind, prior to this time, we don't have entitlement programs, okay? We're getting by with no entitlement programs. All of a sudden, he announces this. It's supposed to be temporary.
It's crazy how much people like FDR. It's just like he blew up the government so much. It's insane. Before FDR, the government was relatively small. Then after he got in there, it just ballooned. Him and Woodrow Wilson in the 1900s, or the 19-teens, 1913 and everything. He also did the same thing. And crazy.
And guess what happens? Becomes permanent. But the key word here is the following. Guaranteed benefits for poor single mothers and their children, along with other dependent persons. Let's see. They say bad policies has consequences. Did this influence how many new single mothers we had in America? Did it influence how our kids did? Let's look at the data. So this chart right here is from the U.S. Government Census Bureau, okay, and it's showing you the growth of unwed childbearing in U.S. from 29. Notice if you look at 1935, flat, less than 4% of the babies born are born to a single mother. That means 96% of all babies born in 1940 were born to a family where there's a mother and a father. 96%. Then that goes from there to now, 40% of babies being born are born to a single mother, not married, no father figure. You know what this tells you? We can look at one other date. If you go to 1964, which was the War on Poverty, this is the program that Lyndon Johnson came up with. He launched the Medicare and Medicaid and expanded housing subsidies, urban development programs, employment and training programs, food stamps, Social Security, and welfare benefits. These programs more than tripled real federal expenditure on health, education, and welfare, which grew to over 15% of the federal budget by 1970. Today, it's at 52%. Take a look at what happens after 64 as well. Spike to 40%. So somebody may say, well, you know, how dare you make these comparisons? Why would you do this? It's called data. And the great thing about data is the more years you have to see if something's working or not, the proof is in the pudding.
They don't care if it works.
This doesn't lie. This is numbers. These were bad policies that incentivized women to have kids out of wedlock. It's not me telling you this. It's the data telling you this. So you may say, Pat, I need more data. No problem. I'll give you more data. Here's another one to look at. Again, from the U.S. Census Bureau. If you look at this, this is total families with children from 1959 till today. If you look at this, look at the top. Married couple families with children. It's 25,000. You got to add 3 zeros to it because it's in thousands, which means 25 million. We've been pretty much the same during that 60-year period, whatever the timeline is. But if you look at the bottom in the red, single-parent families with children, we have 3x'd in 60 years. More people are saying, all good. I'm going to have more kids with no husband and wife being in the household together. These kids are being raised by a single parent. Now, you may say, Pat, I mean, it's just one program. It's not like we have so many different programs. Let me read you all the programs, and you tell me if you heard of these before. First one, Earned Income Tax Credit, EITC. Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, TANF. The Women, Infants, and Children Food Program, WIC. Supplemental Social Security food stamps and child nutrition programs. Public housing and Section 8 housing, and Medicaid. By the way, while married couples with children can also receive aid from these programs, most assistance to families with children goes to single-parent households. 45.4% of families headed by single mothers receive food stamps. 51.4% of single mothers have never been married. Welfare programs financially enable single parenthood. Who does it hurt? The kids. And if the kids are raised without discipline, who does it hurt? Your neighborhood. So this next part,
Well, and then they also not only being raised without discipline, they are going to be raised to think it's okay to rely on the government. It's like you don't have to go work hard to get stuff. You could just stay on welfare, have some kids. Especially if it's a girl, go have some kids out of wedlock. You don't really even have to work. You can just have kids and live for free, and that's okay. That's what my mom did. So, yeah, it just teaches that.
I'm going to read it to you. What I want to challenge you to do is actually follow it with me and listen to it while we're going through this. You'll see why. Let's read this together. A major problem is that the means-tested welfare system actively penalizes low-income parents, ready, who do marry. Who do marry. You're incentivized if you don't marry. You're penalized if you do get married. All means-tested welfare programs are designed so that a family's benefits are reduced as earnings rise. The more money you make and you're independent, your benefits go lower. You're like, why would I work?
Yeah, it's like, why would I work more? That's how a lot of tax brackets are. I had a friend, his mom was a managing nurse at a hospital, and she didn't take a promotion. She was about to get promoted, but with the new tax bracket, she got paid like an extra like $20,000 a year, or like whatever, I don't know what it was. But let's say it's an extra $20,000 a year, but then she went into a new tax bracket, so she got paid she got taxed an extra $23,000. Why I'm losing money? Yeah, it's insane. So it's like it incentivizes you to not make more money.
Harder to make more money. My benefits are getting lower. I'm not going to work. So you're going to send me money? I am. That's what that means. In practice, this means if a low-income single mother marries an employed father, her welfare benefits will generally be substantially reduced. The mother can maximize welfare by remaining unmarried and keeping the father's income off the books. Tell me that makes any sense for you. If this is the incentive program that we have, what do you think people are going to do? Exactly what it takes to maximize the benefits without having to work. For example, a single mother with 2 children who earns $15,000 per year would generally receive around $5,200 per year of food stamps benefits. However, if she marries a father with the same earnings level, her food stamps would be cut to zero. A single mother receiving benefits from Section 8 or public housing would receive a subsidy worth on average around $11,000 per year if she was not employed. But if she marries a man earning $20,000 per year, those benefits would be cut nearly in half. Both food stamps and housing programs provide very real financial incentives for couples to remain separated and unmarried. So some people will say, Pat, stop it. You know, we have to take care of these folks. It's not like these people are not self-sufficient. Why are you discriminating amongst these people? Let me give you more data. I'm going to give you 2 of them. Marriage promotes self-sufficiency. These are percentages of families with children that lack self-sufficiency. You see the 37.1%? This is single-parent, female-headed families. 37.1% of them lack self-sufficiency. They need you and I, the government, taxpayers, to take care of them.
Again, I'm surprised it's not higher than that.
Married parent families, only 6.8% need help. That means 93.2% are self-sufficient. And this next one is my favorite chart. You know why? Because so many times you'll do something and at the beginning it looks good. You see it's working. Look how awesome it is. Look what we're doing to reduce poverty. But you know what this data shows? It shows it took us 55 years to realize how terrible of an idea this was. Take a look at this chart. So, 1947, if you look at all the way to the left, top, percentage of individuals who were poor by the official poverty standard. Keeps going lower and lower and lower. What a noble program by FDR. And then boom, 64. Lyndon Johnson, lower, 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 and then go to 1990. Look at the red. Total means-tested welfare spending in billions of constant dollars goes higher and higher and higher. And the blue stays. And this chart,
I've seen this chart before,
goes to 2012. It's an additional 11 years since then. We're at 52% of the 6.3 trillion. And by the way, this ends in 2013. There's an additional 10 years to it. What do you think it happened? You think it went lower? It went higher and higher and higher. Today, it's 52% entitlement programs. 59 million Americans receive welfare program today. How long can we go with this to sustain it? We can't sustain it today, let alone 10 more years, 20 more years. And while politicians, you know what they're saying? Oh, you are so selfish if you decide to get rid of these entitlement programs. There's no way you should re-elect this individual. Why? He's giving you good ideas, or she's giving you good ideas, but you're playing off of fear because you've given people so many free entitlement programs that they're addicted to it. You know who does things like that? You ever heard of drug dealers, what they do? They give you a little bit of crack or cocaine or whatever, and then eventually a little bit for free. Then, hey, pay up, then pay up. Now they're like, they can't get off of it. What happens? You ruined that person's life. These people, the 59 million, what percentage of their dreams do you think is going to become a reality? What do you think? All of that was taken away from them. Done. Just because you give a little bit of drugs, let's replace it with some entitlement programs. Same consequences. You're hurting these people long term. You're loving them over short term, but you're destroying their lives long term.
They're not loving them. They act like they are, but they just want votes. They know this is what it is. They just want votes. They're not actually trying to help anybody.
So a few things. I've been watching and saying, Pat, what do you want us to do? Do we just cut this whole thing all of a sudden? Of course, we can't do that suddenly, but what if we take that $3.3 trillion that we have and
Well, what's crazy is you can't do that, but if the economy balloons so out of control that the economy eventually collapses under our debt, then it will just happen right away.
Every year we cut it 10%, meaning 3.3 goes to 3, goes to 2.7, maybe 2.5, maybe 2.3, maybe 2.1. Eventually, within the next 15, 20 years, we're down to a very small amount of money that we're giving to this. Oh, Pat, there's no way that would... I understand it's not going to, because these congressmen with unlimited terms they can run, they're never going to pass something like this because you need term limits, and they're not going to let that happen. I'm just telling you that's the solution, because long term, if you don't agree to this, you know who's getting screwed? The kids and our grandkids.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen anyways. The term limits is interesting, and I don't necessarily disagree with term limits, but you just have the deep state in there anyways. Like I said in the last video, right? It's just like these people, they come in and they have the same advisors, the same staffers. Even if you get new Congress people in there, if you have the deep state in there, the same people are basically just running the show. Why would anything change? So it's not just about term limits. I don't even know if term limits are that important. It's about the deep state. Because if you can vote the Congress people out, you're going to get a whole new perspective when that new congressperson gets in. But if you have the deep state, again, like I just said, if you have term limits, who cares? They're just going to be the same advisors, same staffers, encouraging you to do the same stuff. So what does it even matter? And it's maybe not even encouraging. You look at what happened with Trump. He had some deep state swamp creatures in his cabinet and surrounding him, and they just lied to him. They're like, oh no, we're doing this, but then they just went and did the other. You got to get rid of the deep state.
We're saying is, guys, you can handle it. You go ahead and handle all these problems. I'll give you another one here for you as well. If we're rewarding behavior for people to have more kids and we're going to give them entitlement programs, what do you think people are going to do? What if we do the other way around? What if we reward people who are married having kids with a job? What if we do that? Oh my God.
There you go.
You think people will change? Of course they've changed. I've ran a sales organization for 23 years. I've run my own insurance company for the last 14 years. Do you know how many times I changed a compensation program? 50, 60, 70 times. You know what happens when I had a comp where people were writing bogus insurance business, where they were just kind of writing business because they were competing, and I changed it. Overnight, all the bogus business disappeared. Like literally overnight, the bad business disappeared because the incentive program I came up with wasn't a good one. So we had to change it. What happened? Suddenly everyone's income went up. And the people that, were doing their thing, they were improving. They were making an effort to get better because the incentive program changed. We also have to change the incentive programs that we have. But last but not least, let me give you the most important one. I got 4 kids. My dad, when I don't know how old I was, 8 years old, 9 years old, told me a story about being a man. He says, Pat, let me tell you the story here. I told the story in Austin a couple weeks ago. He said this to me. He says, Pat, one day, father wakes up his son. It was summer, so the kid wasn't going to school. He says, son, today you're going to become a man. He says, what do you mean I'm going to become a man? You need to go out there and make $5 today. The son says, Dad, I'm 12 years old. I'm 11 years old. What do you mean I need to go make $5? He says, you need to go make $5 today to be a man today. I said, Dad, come on, Dad, I'm a kid. No reason. Boom, Papa leaves, Dad leaves. Son is like, $5, my God, Mom, I shouldn't work. It's not safe out there. Mom says, don't worry about it, baby. Here's $5. When Daddy comes home, just give it to him. Dad, you made $5. It's between you and I. No problem. Dad comes home. Did you make your $5? Of course, Dad. I made the $5. Here's the $5, Daddy. Awesome. Dad grabs the $5, throws it in the fireplace. The fire starts burning the $5. Mommy chases after the $5. Daddy realized Mommy gave the kid $5. He says, son, you didn't make the $5. Kid goes to sleep, feels like crap, wakes up in the morning. Dad says, hey, today you got to make $5. Dad goes to work. Son goes to Mom. Hey, Mom, can I I'm not giving you nothing. He's not going to burn another $5 of mine. You got to go figure this thing out. Son goes out, starts begging everybody in the community, starting with his uncle. And his uncle finally, after begging a few different relatives, he raises $5 through begging. entitlement programs through begging, he gets $5. Comes home, Mom, guess what? I got $5. I talked to Uncle this, Uncle that, Auntie this. Awesome, good job, babe. Dad comes home. Son, did you make $5? Yeah, Daddy, look at this. 5 $1 bills. Dad grabs it, boom, throws in a $5. Why would you do that? You didn't make $5. How do you know? Trust me, I know. Tomorrow, you best make $5. Dad wakes up, goes to son, hey, $5 today, goes to work. Mom, no. Begging, no. And she goes across the street to say, man, can I work for you? I need to make $5 today or else my dad's gonna chew me out. He said, I can't give you $5, but I'll give you a penny for each sandbag you move from here to over there. Only a penny, only a penny. This kid, 11, 12 years old, only moves 150 sandbags. Gets $1.50 and change. Dad comes home. Son is sweaty, dirty hands. Says, son, did you make $5? He says, no, I made $1.50. Puts the money in Dad's hands. Dad grabs the money, throws it in the fireplace. The son runs into the fireplace, starts picking up this money. Dad hugs him. He says, son, today I know for a fact you worked for that $1.50. You know why? Because you were willing to burn your hands because you paid the price for this. You're officially a man. I am so proud of you. I think we need to start believing in the American people that you are better than this.
It's a bit cruel, but taught his son a lesson, I bet.
Situation to have kids, don't have kids. I think too many people are pressured to have kids simply because of these bogus incentive programs that we have. If we start believing in our people, we change the incentive programs, we challenge.
And I think they're also incentivized not to get married. It's the same thing. Like the Snow White woman and everything. Like, oh, no, it's weird. It's weird if the guy's like wanting to be with you. That's probably where this came from. It's just like, no, don't get married because you're better off. The government will take care of you. You're better off if you don't get married.
Our guys to start dreaming again, having value in themselves again. Eventually, one day we're going to wake up realizing we don't need to waste all our money, your money, my money, 52% on people and steal their dreams away from them. Instead, we've developed a whole new generation of leaders, and America's future looks bright.
That's awesome. Good story. Great video they put out there. Awesome. Yeah, and I agree with all that. We need to get rid of the entitlement programs. It's making the economy worse in a lot of different ways. You go and you incentivize people not to work so they don't get the tax money. Then the tax money you do get, it's just going to other people that they're not even contributing to the economy as much. So, yeah, I thought that was a great video. Shows a lot of data, shows a lot of, really interesting stuff that more people should realize. I used to be like a liberal like 15 years ago, and then I saw these charts and stuff. I think, Peter Schiff talked about it on Joe Rogan. And then I'm like, oh, man, this makes a lot of sense. It's not about helping people. It's not really even helping them. It's just making their lives worse in a way, like Pat just pointed out, right? It's you don't get taught to work. You get incentivized not to get married. The kids, single kids, it's harder because you don't have someone to raise the kids with you. So that makes it harder. It makes it harder on the kids because they don't have a 2-parent household. So I think there's a huge reason why society's where it's at right now. And people hate America and everything because they're like, hey, other countries, they give you all these, they give you even more entitlements. Yeah, they take 90% of your money in taxes, but look at they pay for all this stuff. But then if everyone gets it, there's no incentive to go work harder because they take 90% of my money, right? What does it matter if I make 100,000 or 10,000? Take 1,000 or 10,000. I don't have to work as hard as if I make 10,000, but I get everything paid for me. So who cares? Yeah, maybe I'll get a few extra things. But I mean, if you're making 100,000, you still only get 10,000. Like, what are you really even going to buy with that? You know? So, yep. Very, very interesting. But I think I'm going to call it there. Definitely appreciate you joining me on episode 2 of the David Carson Show. I'll do my best to actually make it on time tomorrow. The goal is 1 p.m. Eastern time, but just technical issues. Is if you watch the whole thing, I don't know what's going on with these like the move things here. I don't know. It's like working there, but sometimes it doesn't work, and it's like it does really weird stuff. Right there, it worked flawlessly. It makes me really happy. But if you were watching the whole thing, it's like that's not the case. It's just it makes it bigger, but that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to look like this. It looks very nice. I like it a lot. Looks great, but then when it glitches, it looks terrible. So I gotta try to get that figured out. The mic, I think, sounds better today I got to go check it out and make sure for sure when I watch it back. But either way, I'm going to get a new mic in the next few weeks. I'm going to get the SM7B that Tim Pool, if you watched the whole thing, you saw him using it. So awesome. And we're going to really make this a lot better. But yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there for today, and I'll just, I'll catch you tomorrow. Remember, going to try to do 12 p.m. Oh, and I also might do a stream tonight, actually, with the debate. I'm undecided, but I think I'm going to. It'll probably be Rumble and X exclusive, because I think I'm going to bring Crowder in, and who knows what he's going to say. So, but anyway, I'll catch you tomorrow regardless. Even if it's not on time, I'll definitely be streaming tomorrow regardless. But, yep, I'll catch you then. Peace out.